ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. It's Untethered Live on a Saturday night. You know what that means? Politi-tics. That's tonight. I'm your host, Jake Johnson, and tonight you are in the hot seat. Come on in. Take your shoes off. Set a spell. It's going to be a great show. Amanda says, hi, Untethered Live family. Good to see y'all. Happy Saturday. I hope everyone is doing good and having a good weekend. Hi, Jake. How are you tonight? Magna P.I.ish. That's how I am tonight. How are you? I got a nice hot cup of coffee, a belly full of eggs, and I'm ready to rock and roll. Kevin's here. He gets the gold star for being first in chat. Hi, Kevin. How are you doing, buddy? Kevin says, hello, Amanda. Amanda says, Kevin, here's your gold star. And Kevin says, hello, Jake. Here I am. A whisker on my microphone. All right. I'm here. How are you, buddy? Nice to see you. Amanda says, hi, Kevin. Kevin says, Saturday night equals Night of the Trolls. It might be. It might be. That's all right, though. We get traction on Saturday night. That's what matters. Maybe someday that'll translate into me making a living. That's the goal anyway. Yeehaw. Amanda says, LOL, night of chaos. Night of me reading until midnight. Kevin says, this should be interesting. It should be. Yes. John H., what's up, my friend? He says, hello, everyone. How's everyone? I just ate 4 chocolate eclairs, 3 chocolate donuts, and 3 custard tarts. You must be full. That's a lot of eating, but I'm glad you're eating. Put some, broccoli in there with those. Something. Might be how you got in that position in the first place. Take care of yourself there, John. Amanda says it'll probably be okay, LOL. And hi, Nugget. I'm glad to see you're feeling better. Nugget. John, that's your name from now on, buddy. You done made it stick. John says, hey, Kevin and Amanda. Thumbs up and hearts. Kevin says, hello, John. John says, thanks. They're all soft. Right? But you're getting them down. That's what's important. Amanda says, LOL, right. And Debbie's here. Hi, Debbie. She says, hello, all. I'm moving to John's house if that's what he's having for dinner. I had eggs and grits. Well, I had an omelet and grits and toast. And it was delicious. And coffee. Amanda says, hi, Debbie. And LOL, Debbie. And Kevin says, hello, Debbie. Amanda says, we had omelets, grits, and toast for dinner. I said that already. Spec Lobby, what's up? He says, how is it? How is it going? It's fantastic, Spec Lobby. How you doing? Everything's beautiful here. I got a new sign hanging up. Thanks to the band Hammer. She designed me a new sign. I like it. What do you think? Amanda says, hey, Spec. John says, hi, Debbie, and welcome anytime for a munch. I bet she is there, John. Kevin says, hello, Spec. Spec Lobby says, cool banner. Thank you. Amanda says, looks good. Well, you did it. It looks good from here. I appreciate the compliment, Spec Lobby, but it goes to Amanda. Only Sophie says, hey, hello, Only Sophie. Welcome to the show. Come on in, take your shoes off. It's going to be a good show. Who are you, where you're from, and what would you like to talk about? Within reason. Amanda says, hi, Only Sophie. Welcome. Did I turn my noise filter back on? Yes, I did. Okay. I'm Sophie, and I'm from Australia. Well, good day, mate. Nice to see you. I'm from not Australia. I'm from North America. Only Sophie says, thank you, Amanda. And Debbie says, LOL, thanks, John. I hope you have a lot, because I can eat. I think she's serious there, John. Amanda says, you're welcome, Sophie. John says, it was King Charles's birthday today. Really? It's Donald Trump's birthday tomorrow. Or today. Maybe it's today. Might be today. So that's King Charles and Donald Trump on the same birthday? That's weird. Spec Lobby says, Elon Musk, Donald Trump beef. Is there something else going on, Spec Lobby? Last I heard, they had a spat and went their separate ways. A little bit of backbiting this way, a little bit of backbiting that way, and then it kind of just petered out. I don't see that going anywhere. As a matter of fact, I'm not entirely sure it's real. I think it was a clever ploy to get people to stop burning down Tesla places and vandalizing Tesla cars and generally hating on Elon. Put him back in the driver's seat, so to speak. Everybody already hates Trump. He can take it. Might as well say a bad thing or two about him and go on. And here's how you know that is. The last thing Elon said was, Trump is on the Epstein list. You're welcome. Something like that. Well, anybody that knows anything at all already knows that that's not true. Matter of fact, it was Donald Trump's testimony that got Epstein arrested in the first place back in the early 2000s. So that tells me either Elon really is that stupid or they're in on it together. And he's just saying things to make people hate. As an added bonus, you got the Democrats hollering, release the Epstein files, which is something they weren't doing a week ago. Seems to me like that was 4D chess in action. What do you think? You know it says, thank you. You're welcome. For what? And welcome. You know it, 21. Amanda says, how you know it? Welcome. And Amanda says, Elon took down his posts and apologized to Trump. Yes, a week later. Doesn't sound like a feud to me. Does it sound like a feud to you? It sounds like a ploy. They accomplished something with that. Only Sophie says, I didn't sleep at all last night, and now I feel really gross. Well, go take a shower. It's not the kind of thing you say to a stranger, Only Sophie. I'm guessing you're very young. What is it about young people finding this show? It's marked not for kids. Wait What says, I support your theory. Thank you, Wait What. Nice to meet you. Come on in and tell us a little bit about yourself. Sonat YouTube says something, hey ya oh. I don't know what any of that means. And I don't care to. Speak English and I'll respond. Amanda says, hi, Wait What, welcome. Aziz says, comment Vestu. Don't know what that means either. All right, children, ain't it about bedtime? If you can't carry on a decent conversation, you should probably head on down the road. This ain't the place for it. Shelby Bernard says, hello, I'm new. Hello, Shelby. Come on in, take your shoes off. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Shelby said, hi. Aziz says, there seems to be a lot of illegal activity hidden there. Hidden where? What are we talking about, Aziz? First thing you said was, a few minutes ago, Vastu. Comment Vastu. I don't know what Vastu is. What is Vastu and why is there illegal activity there? Amanda says, hi, newcomers. Welcome. Only Sophie says, my cat scratched me. Oh, be careful. You might get cat scratch fever. And then you'll go around the house acting like Ted Nugent, jumping off of things and wearing a cat tail. It's very unpleasant. Spec Lobby says, good insight. I really think this is something they planned. Like I said, people already hate Donald Trump. What's another hatred? So if Elon can say something and get them to stop burning Teslas and stop threatening Tesla places and get the Democrats to start calling for the release of the Epstein files all in one tweet, Yeah, that seems too good to be true to me. I doubt very seriously they did that by accident. Too many good things came of that for it to not have been thought out. And anybody that thinks Donald Trump is a moron really aren't giving themselves enough credit. They are that stupid. Because, number one, he graduated top of his class at West Point, which is not the kind of school you can just get into. Number two, he's a billionaire. Number three, he made it to become president of the United States of America on his first try. And his second. Does he sound like he's dumb to me? To you? He doesn't sound like he's dumb to me. I don't care if you like him. You can't say he's dumb. And I personally think he plays the media like a fiddle and has been playing 4D chess this whole time. I don't think anything he does is by accident. Kevin says, hello, Shelby. Politics are a mean, says Sonnet. Yes, they are mean. Or I mean. I don't know what you're talking about. The last thing you said was UWU, which I don't know what that is. That's some young person thing, and I don't care to know what that is. So speak English, and I'll respond. I don't know what you're talking about. Amanda says, hi, Shelby, welcome. Crab with a knife, says Amanda, called me the N-word. WTF, Amanda. Crab? That's your one and only warning. If you do that again, you will be kicked out of here without prejudice. This is a place for adult thought. You don't have to be old, but you have to think like a grown-up. If you can't, you're out. Simple. And that goes for all newcomers. I will not tolerate your trolliness and your silly questions and your stupid remarks that mean nothing. You're wasting my time. I have a life. If I'm going to spend time here talking to you, I would like my breath to mean something. And I would like yours to mean something too. If it doesn't, go spread it somewhere else and waste it somewhere else. Amazon says rip torn, like that. Debbie says, I thought I would see a lot about the No King protests, but I have only seen one post, and they said only 10 showed up to their town, but never said the town. That's because we don't have a king, and anybody that's got any common sense already knows that. Not going to go waste their time at a rally for nothing. We don't do kings in America. We elect our presidents, and this particular one was duly elected with a landslide. Morose Loki says, oh yeah, mass distraction tactics. I agree. Only Sophie says, not like that. I'm talking about, I feel like I'm going to faint. Also, well, only Sophie, if you feel like you're going to faint, get off the computer and go talk to your mother. Or the phone, wherever you're at. Why are you on YouTube if you feel like you're going to faint? You just have to reach out to strangers and tell people your medical problems? I feel like my kidney's going to bust. Do you feel like you know me better now? Oh, woe is an emotion. Not one that I've ever had. And I've had a few of them. Debbie says, hey, Jake, do you have my lost shaker of salt? Yes, I do. It's right over there in Margaritaville. Amy's here. She says, like, shared, and invited some friends. All right, Amy. Only Sophie says it's 10:40 a.m. for me. How about you? It is 8:47 p.m. for me. You are in Australia, so you're on the other side of the world, which means it's coming up and we're going down. Amanda says, hi, Amy. And Kevin says, hello, Amy. Bobby's anecdotes and suggestions. Got a message retracted right off the bat. Must not have been very anecdotal or suggestive. Silly kids. I don't mind kids, but you got to be here to learn something. You're wasting my time. That's a no-go. My chat jumped. I got to find where I was at. Well, it went too far. I see. What's the number, Amanda? 844, I believe. That looks right. Yep. Wasted away again in Margaritaville, searching for my lost shaker of salt. Some people claim that there's a woman to blame. And they're right. It's all Debbie's fault. Amanda says, hi, Amy. Kevin says, hello, Amy. James Laley says, hey, buddy, you don't sound like a liberal. Thank God just found you. Well, I am not a liberal. I'm not a Republican either. I'm a guy that wears a Hawaiian shirt and has a fantastic mustache and tells it like it is, baby. Welcome, James. Come on in and enjoy the conversation and the chaos that ensues for trying to have one. Where are the bodies? The families need closure. In my backyard. Care to come look? Moreau says, for balance? Possibly. James says, looks like the liberals are offing themselves. Well, people do strange things. It's none of my business. Amy says, hi, Jake. Hi, Amanda, Kevin, Debbie, and y'all. Hi, Amy. Trump isn't necessarily a moron, but his followers are. Well, I follow him. Does that make me a moron too, Amazon? I think you're overgeneralizing, and I think that you're probably guilty of the very thing you're accusing of someone else of being. A lot of retracted messages here, you guys. I'm telling you, you're not going to get in. If you came here to waste my time, you came to the wrong stream. I'm trying to make a living here by telling the truth to people that want to hear it. If you don't, go somewhere else. Agreed with that sentiment, says Morose. Thank you. Wait, what says, I'm a believer in the earth being a megastructure, not in the standard sense, rather by the fact our society spans the globe. Well, you would be not wrong. The earth is a megastructure in a lot of ways. And also it was created, therefore it is a megastructure. Amy says, insults will not be tolerated. Be respectful or be booted. Randy Massey says, what kind of channel is this, Randy? Tonight it's political. See the sign? It says Politi-tics. Because it's a little bit crazy and we're just vaguely on topic and it'll probably go off the rails very quickly. But this show is about you in all of its iterations. Wednesday and Friday we do chill stream where we talk and play music and get to know each other and tell stories and whatnot. Saturday, we do a political night where we try to talk about politics, but it usually goes off the rails. And Sunday and Monday, we do Bible study. So we get everything all in one. But tonight, it's vaguely political. Yes, sir. And welcome. Aziz says, it seems that the Golden Dome is the event that will attract talk in the coming days. The Golden Dome, you mean the thing that Trump is putting up to protect us from missiles? Yeah, it didn't work for Reagan. I don't think it's going to work for Trump either. But it's a good talking point, I guess. James said hi. Hello, James. Amanda says, hi, Randy. Tonight is political. Amy says, hi, Randy. It's a YouTube channel. Randy says, you might be a redneck if. I am not a redneck, although I have been accused of being one. I'm tougher than a redneck. My fashion choices were out of necessity, not out of fashion. And I don't need a big truck to prove how big my penis is. I ride a Harley for that. Randy says, what are we talking about? Well, right now we're talking about you. We hadn't actually started a conversation yet. We're just getting rid of the riffraff so we can have a conversation. Amy says, hi, James. Welcome. And DJ Wacademics, I like your name, Wacademics, has a message retracted. Apparently it was wacademically unapproved. Randy says, hello. What is the conversation about, sir? Whatever you would like it to be. We hadn't started a conversation yet. We're just getting rid of the trolls, and then we'll get into something. There are some possible suggestions in the title. We are getting ready to go to war with the Middle East. There are some riots going on in L.A., and today is Trump's birthday. Those are some things we can talk about. James says, hi, Amy. El Pinche Mimo says, do you think the military is here to stay? Well, El Pinche, the military has been here since the inception of the United States and has not had any signs of going anywhere yet. I would imagine it's here to stay. If by that you mean in California, no. No, right now they're just showing people that they can't act that way. Amanda says, anything you want to talk about, Randy? Randy says, we love Trump. I do love Trump. He's not perfect, though, but nobody is. Randy says, you're doing God's work, sir. I am that. I do actually work for the guy. That'd be Sunday and Monday, though. Tonight is just chit-chat about politics. Amy says, don't slam the chat with the same comment either, please. Yes, do not repeat yourself. I'm reading every chat. If you repeat yourself, you're wasting everybody's time. Your comment will be read. Just give it time. X Walsey says, hello, sir. How are you doing today? I'm fine, X Walsey. How are you? And thank you for greeting me. See, kids, that's how you start a conversation. It might not end well, but it started well. You don't walk into a chat room and say some nonsense like, my kidney hurts, or I feel like I'm going to faint, or free Palestine, or whatever nonsense you guys are thinking about these days. You say, hello, my name is so-and-so. That's how you start a conversation with a stranger. I can't believe your parents didn't teach you that. Amy says, spam, not slam. That's a cat. Oh, Siam. I see it. Siam is a cat. Well, it's Siamese. John says, I can see the banhammer's gonna be well used tonight. Yeah, she's sharpening up the edges as we speak. Randy says, Trump is a patriot. We should all show respect. I agree, Randy. He is a patriot, and so are we around here. We believe in America, or what it once was, and we don't like what it's turning into. And we're doing our very level best to allow a space that young people can come and hear reality, because they're not getting a whole lot of it where they're at. I don't know why, but this whole world has gone crazy in a matter of about 20 years, and we need to undo that, because we're not going to go anywhere as long as we're staying in this kind of frame of mind, this 10-second tick-tock way of thinking. James says, Here I am, all loaded up with my Second Amendment devices, and nothing happened. I'm glad, but man, they had us pumped here in Pennsylvania. Right on, buddy. I hear you. Well, you polish up them Second Amendment devices and keep them close, because you never know what's coming around the corner, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. I recommend to all my friends to stay to aid and act one aid. Randy says, LOL. Caroline Sink says, Heart Trump America. French statue. Right on, Caroline. Welcome to the show. Al Sama Amgar says, hey, brothers and sisters. Hello. Aziz says, there's always a power struggle between Russia and Ukraine that will be stopped by the Golden Dome. No, it won't. The Golden Dome is just to protect America. It doesn't have any offensive nature. It's strictly defensive. Basically, what it's for is to stop China from letting their balloons fly over our country and take pictures of whatever the hell they want to, like the previous administration did. Nice ponytail, bro. Thank you. The ladies seem to like it. I'm glad you approve. Randy says, Trump for 2028. I'm down. I am too, but sadly that's not going to happen. At least as the laws currently said, it can't happen. Now, it's not beyond me that somebody might try to change those laws in the next year or two. But as it sits right now, you can only be president for 4 years twice. Amanda says, it's getting warmed up. Good, Nugget. It's getting warmed up good, Nugget. Her band hammer. Got it. Randy says, Trump bringing. Yes, he is. X Whaley says, Trump 2028. X Walsey. Sorry. Walsey? X Walsey, did you used to vote for Governor Walz? He got his ass handed to him today. Amy says, living in a multi-generational home is not a bad thing. Some people can't afford to live single. Families take care of each other. I agree. Al Sama says, Islam is the truth religion. Well, first of all, your English sucks. Second of all, no, it's not. And third of all, you're right. It is a religion. I don't teach religions here. If you come from my Bible study, that's what you're going to get. Study of the Bible. There's no religion involved. I do not teach traditions. I do not teach repertoire. I do not teach anything anybody has crafted for the sake of believing a certain thing. I teach whatever the evidence shows me to teach. The Bible is the evidence. If it's in there, I'll teach it. If it's not, I won't. And Islam has a source from the Bible, and that would be Abraham's first son, Ishmael. However, that is not the son that inherited the kingdom. That would be the son Isaac. So whatever happened to Ishmael was not what needed to be done. What happened to Isaac was what needed to be done, and that culminated in Jesus Christ. So you're wrong about that being the truth. Also, it's full of lies, so there's that. X Walsey says, teach us. I will on Sunday. Tonight, we're just hanging out. I ain't trying to teach you nothing tonight. Unless you want. Amy says, Christ is King. Jesus is Lord. Amen. Spec Lobby says, this isn't a Muslim channel. Get Peer. Oh, Asuma. Get out, Asuma. He's welcome to be here. He just ain't going to be teaching nothing from the Quran or I will boot him. But they need Jesus as bad as everybody else does. Probably worse. So I don't kick them out just because they believe that. If they'll listen, they can stay. I have a friend that comes quite often who is a Muslim, but he already learned his lesson about teaching from the Quran, and now he just shows up and listens and leaves. And I'm all right with that. Alex Peacemaker, his glory. Yes, his glory. Hello, Alex. Welcome back. Spec Lobby says, get out, Muhammad. X Walsey says, F Palestine, watch your language. There's a lot of ladies in here, X Walsey. Have a little respect. But you're not wrong. Spec Lobby says, mods, please help. Well, they're not going to kick him out for believing what he believes. They'll only kick him out if he oversteps his bounds and tries to teach something from a corrupt book. That's my job, to teach, not yours. Rim Lee, Chris, all you guys are just getting your messages deleted and retracted. Come on now. Get with the program. X Walsey says, was? Was what? Fallen One says, hell yeah. X Walsey says, still is. Still is what? What are we talking about? Don't leave the context out of your sentences. I have to read it, and I'm usually about 10 minutes behind, so if I don't directly know what you're talking about, I'll lose the thread, and it won't mean anything to me, so tell me what you're talking about. Alex says, Peacemaker, his glory, the left and the right are the same spirit of the world, Antichrist. Well, that's not the Antichrist. No, that's a different spirit that will come into the world later. But you're right, they are the same bird. Left wing, right wing, same bird. Debbie says, and you wish they can all be California girls. But we're not. I'm glad you're not. I think every girl ought to be sent to Georgia to learn how to smile, if you ask me. Wait, what says chaos is the only true symmetry bestowed by nature. Order is a selfish desire. Is it? That's interesting. Deep. I'm not sure it's right, but I like where your head's at. I think order is evidence of a designer because everything else tends to chaos. Everything in nature tends to chaos except for that which is ordered, which is obviously put there. Amy says, she's fasting. I'm trying to keep up. Alex Peacemaker says, amen. Right on. And thank you for subscribing, Andres. Andres Merrick. I like the name. I probably said that wrong. Maybe that's Andresage. I can't tell. I'm just going to call you Andy. Amanda says, LOL, sorry, Amy. Water dog. How much time do we have until what's happening in the East spills into the West? Now, that's a good question, and an apropos one. I don't know, to be honest with you. I personally think this will probably end in a skirmish. I don't really think it's going to turn into all and all out World War III like some people are predicting it's gonna, but it might. I don't personally think this is the thing that leads to World War III. I personally think that there's always going to be wars and rumors of wars in the Middle East, and that's the way it's going to stay for a long, long time. And there's a lot of things that haven't happened yet that need to happen in order for the Armageddon type stuff to start happening, which hasn't come yet. So I don't think we're there yet. We are in the end times, but the very beginning of it, not the part where you need to start worrying. Bash says, message deleted by Amy Elizabeth. Well, see, you got to watch your mouth. Amy says, not fair, Amanda is getting all of them. She's quick, I'm telling you. She's been wielding that hammer with a quickness for a long time. Amanda says, gotta be quick, LOL. Spec Lobby says, is it just me or is it very delayed? No, it's listen. Every time I stop and respond to a chat, time keeps moving, which means I get further behind. And I'm going to read every chat that appears. That's my gift to you. That's what this show is about. It's about your thoughts. I'm not leaving anybody out. You don't have to volley for attention here. You got it. I'm going to give it to you. You don't have to feel left out if I don't get to your chat. I'm going to get to it. If you super chat, I'll read it immediately. But every time I stop to respond to a chat, the chat keeps moving, so that puts me further and further behind, and it's going to be delayed. You just have to get used to that. That's how this show works. You say what you're going to say, and then you wait, and then when I get to it, I'll respond to it. That'll also inform how you talk. You'll tend to learn to say more important, more pointed things, and not so much chit-chat and riff-raff. Just say what you mean, say what you believe, part of the conversation, and then wait for me to respond to it. It's a little tricky, but we'll get used to it. Trump is not God. Don't be blasphemous. No, Trump is not God. There's only one God. John H. says, respect the chat or get booted and close the door behind you. Amen. Amanda says, spec, he isn't, or he's behind reading all the chat. There you go. Amy says, hi, Johnny Nuggets. Hello there, says, holy shit, it's Andy Reid. Nope, it's me. Carmilla says, I'm in the kitchen where I belong. Would you like a sandwich, sir? Yes, I would. But you don't have to worry about that. I already have somebody in the kitchen where they belong, making sandwiches as we speak. Alex says, I didn't realize it was politics. I'll see you tomorrow, brothers and sisters. That's all right, Alex. Hang on. It'll usually devolve into some form of Christian conversation before it's over. We just attempt at politics because that's what's happening in the world. But if you don't want to talk about it, I'll see you tomorrow. Amy says, I want a sandwich. Right on. John H. says, hi, Amy Hart. Amanda says, okay, Alex. See you then, buddy. Spec Lobby says, okay, thanks, Amanda. And Amanda says, you're welcome, Spec. What it is says, hello. Hey, what it is. Nice to see you, buddy. Nice to see you. I hope you're doing well today, sir. Debbie says, it's the No Pants Club weekly meeting. Right on. I'm definitely not wearing any. Amanda says, hi, what it is. Amy says, I'm not a redneck. I'm an Appalachian American. Right on. I'm not a redneck either, though I did grow up around a bunch of them. What it is says, hello, Amanda. John H. says, come around my Amy. I got cakes. Come around my house, Amy. I got cakes, too. All right. Camilla says, Harleys make me tingle down there. Me, too. They vibrate a lot. But I'm glad you approve. And mine is sitting out there under the shelter right now, getting ready to be rode tomorrow. Amy says, hi, what it is. Praying you're doing okay. Hugs. Charlie Bars, watch your mouth. What it is says, I am good. I am a good subject to talk about. You are a good subject to talk about. What you want to talk about you about? Amy says, Charles, back off. That's Amanda's job. Sean, watch your mouth. Vid Watcher says, what the heck are these protests about? That's a good question, Vid Watchers. These protests are paid exhibitions by rich people trying to prove points because they don't want their money train to stop. And what Trump has set out to do is stop the money train for all the people that have been mooching off the government forever and ever and ever. That's what Doge was about. That's what all the printing money last couple of administrations was about. And these protests are paid opposition. These people don't care. They didn't say a word when the exact same thing was happening under Obama. But now because it's Trump, they're out in the streets in force, and there's pallets of bricks being delivered. There's printed signs from the same company all over the place. There's organized groups of people which take money and time and effort to establish, and there's a lot of the same people that protest everywhere else. These are paid protesters. This is not real. It might be real then that they're burning things down and causing a lot of ruckus, but the sentiment that causes it is not genuine. It's not a grassroots movement, is what I'm saying. Sorry, I got a little bit of a cold. Can't breathe. Hands up, don't you? Sorry. What's the number, Amanda? I got lost again. Got it. Can't be 8:56. I'm still reading stuff I hadn't seen. All right, I'm here. Mobius Squadron says, hates to repeat himself. Hates to repeat himself. Well, don't repeat yourself, Mobius, because you're wasting my time. I'm going to read your chat, and if you repeat yourself, I'm saying the same thing over and over again. Nobody wants to hear that, and I don't want to do it. So just say your point and keep moving. Fallen says, when will any country declare that it is World War III? I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, Fallen. I might be wrong about that, but I really think that this skirmish is going to be just like the Ukraine thing. It's going to be talked about for a little while, and then it's just going to kind of go away when it gets too expensive. I don't think this is going to be the thing that causes the end. I think you'll be all right. I could be wrong, but I'm tired of hearing about wars and getting panicked about it. When somebody drops a bomb, then we'll start talking. Until then, it's just this. Aubrey says hi. Hi, Aubrey. I have an uncle named Aubrey. Nice name. Amy says, hi, Aubrey. Water Dog says, looking at the big picture, would it be unreasonable to say that maybe the earth would repair and restore with us gone? Wouldn't that be better for everything else that lives here? No. Absolutely, the earth will repair itself whether we're here or not. I don't know what you're getting at, but it sounds to me like you assume that we have some effect on this planet that would not be wiped clean in about 3 days if we disappeared. We are not hurting this planet. You can't kill it. You're not that tough. You're not that smart, and you're not that destructive. The world's going to keep on keeping on. And also, we're in no danger of running out of resources. All the people are piled up on the coasts. If you want more stuff, move. Go west or east, wherever you're at, and see what's in the middle of the country. A lot of empty space. A lot of room to grow stuff. So no, removing us from the planet would be removing the very reason this planet exists. I don't know if you figured this out yet or not, because you probably read a bunch of science books, but everything that exists for the benefit of mankind. Not one thing here exists of its own accord without the necessity of mankind. Not one thing. Aubrey says hi again. Hi, Aubrey, again. Don't repeat yourself, Aubrey. Amanda says, welcome all newcomers. Wega says hello. Hello, Wega. Watches Make America Great Again. Wrong. It's the Democrats that started the KKK, not the Republicans. Get your facts right. What it is says we are in the beginning of World War III. Iran has finally entered the ring. Yeah, I'm not worried about Iran. Iran is not a threat. I repeat, Iran is not a threat. Amy says, I'd like to be outside tending to my veggies, but the chat needs to settle down first. I hear you, Amy. Well, don't let us keep you, honey. If you need to tend to your veggies, that's all right. Wega says, where are you from? Where am I from, or where am I currently located? Because I'm from Georgia in the United States. I'm currently in North Carolina, though, which is not Georgia. Wait, what says, water dog? No, because we've displaced its ecosystems, and invasive species would destroy what we used to know as nature. Well, no, it wouldn't destroy it. Some things would vanish, other things would thrive, and ultimately, everything would die. Because you need people on Earth to keep it tame. People cause civilization. Civilization stops massive overforesting. There is a such thing as having too much. And I personally don't believe that the world would survive very long at all without people on it, as far as living things go. We do a whole lot in this world. James W.T. says, so glad everyone is celebrating Trump's birthday today. I am. Well, I'm not celebrating it, but I'm acknowledging it. Amanda says, go ahead, Amy, if you need to. What it is says, match serenity with calamity. Two opposite ends of the spectrum. Mobius Squadron says, yes, sir. James W.C. says, hi. Hello. John H. says, Amy, sing your veggies, they grow better. Sing to your veggies, they grow better. Alex Alberto G. says, hey, brother, I just got done watching the parade, and it was a complete success. Lefties got the weather wrong. 0 rain. Meanwhile, it rained all over those protesters. Go MAGA. Now there's just God letting you know whose side he's on. Wega says, hello from Russia. Well, hello, Russia. I hope you're doing well and not in any danger. James T. says, talk to you later. Later, James. Wait, what says, humanity is keeping the web of life held together with very thin thread. I agree with that, 100%. Once you realize that the world was created to be inhabited by people, once you realize that fact, everything else suddenly makes sense. How things function the way they do. You have to understand that every living thing on planet Earth is symbiotic to something else on planet Earth. There is not one anomaly in the chain of life from one end of the spectrum to the other. There's not one thing that exists that doesn't require something else that exists to exist. Not even you. You have all kinds of things living inside of your gut and in your liver and under your fingernails and in your eyes and in your ears. All kinds of critters to make you function. Your gut flora and fauna, those are plants, by the way, according to science. That's what they call it, though. Why is that? Well, because you are a multi-organism. A multi-organic life form. Amy says, I guess there was a group of protesters that broke into the Capitol today. I wonder if they'll be thrown into solitary confinement for years, too. No, they'll probably be released on their own reconnaissance. Lewis says, purple SpongeBob. Am I right? Mobius Squadron says, sure they do. LOL. Cut it off. What are we talking about, Morbius? L. Watch your mouth. Fab Daddy said hi. What's up, Fab? Lois says, only 2 terms. Right. You can't have 2028 as bad as you want it unless they change the laws, which Congress could do that. I don't think they're gonna, but they could. Amanda says, hi, Fab. Amy says, hey, Fab Daddy. Amy says, the Trump derangement syndrome is showing. L, your Trump derangement syndrome is showing. What it is says Vance will sit as the next president. That's an entirely good possibility, what it is. I think he's being groomed for that, yes. I also don't look past the fact that Donald Trump Jr. or Barron Trump could run for president in a couple of years. He ain't quite old enough yet. I think you have to be 35, but time there's two other presidents, he'll be old enough. So it is entirely possible Trump, Donald Jr., Eric, Barron. It is entirely possible to keep the Trump train going for 4 administrations at 2 years each. That's quite a long time to have a president in office, or his way of thinking in office. And if Donald Trump is smart, he's setting that up that way right now. Because if he's smart, he could set the MAGA movement such that it would last for the next 100 years if he sets the right people in place and gets them on a schedule to groom the next person in line. And if he sets that up right, he could conceivably do that. Whether he will or not is beyond me. I don't know, but he could do it. It'd be nice to see if he did try. Debbie says, I like the shirt. If I was Amanda, I would steal it. Oh, no. No, this shirt is 100% Jake. A little bit Magnum P.I. Amanda says, Vance 2028. He'd make a good president, I think. He's a smart guy, fast learner. O says Trump would be Trump would be too old in 2028 to go another 4 years. I doubt that. At least there's a big risk he wouldn't be all there at that age. Well, I don't know if you've met Donald Trump or not, or spent any time listening to him. But that guy's sharper than you are and probably has more energy. I don't see 4 years stopping that. But that's just my thoughts. I don't know. Fab Daddy says, Nookie. Oops. I meant no kings. What a great day for the First Amendment. What a great day for the First Amendment is. Yeah, it's a good day for the First Amendment. Every day is a good day for the First Amendment. What do you mean by no kings? You do realize we don't have a king, right? John says, at the moment, L.A., there's tear gas going off. Watching a bit on the laptop as well. Right on. Yep. The Marines have been called in. Gavin Newsom tried to stop it, of course, and he failed miserably. He got slapped down almost immediately by the appellate court because the president, turns out, oddly enough, is commander-in-chief of the army and can tell them to do whatever he wants them to do. And the states, oddly enough, are part of the Union of the United States, which belongs to the president's purview. So it's his job to clean the streets up if the states won't do it. So, turns out he's very much allowed to send in the Marines or whoever he wants. He could send in clowns if he wanted to. Lewis says, is the evidence showing that Jesus Christ was an immigrant? No. Jesus Christ was from Nazareth and lived in Bethlehem. What does that mean, he was an immigrant? You know that all those people are from the Middle East, right? What kind of thinking is that anyway, Lewis? Did you learn that in class? Did a teacher teach you to say that? You should take the Bible to the teacher and slap her across the lips with it and say, read this one time. One time. Jesus was an immigrant. You understand that all of Israel, that whole area, was under Roman rule at the time, which makes all of them subjugate to Rome. So by Rome's authority, they were all Roman citizens. Not by choice, but by being overthrown. Was he an immigrant? To where? No. Amanda says, oh yeah, Nugget. They shutting that shit down. Amy says, Lewis, that's funny. Jocelyn says something in Chinese. I think that's Chinese. No kings. Hashtag no kings. Live long and prosper. Well, you got one thing right. Actually, two things. We don't have a king, so protesting no kings is stupid. We don't have a king. This is a country that is a constitutional republic with democratically elected leaders by the people, for the people, of the people. We don't have a king. Never have had a king. Never will have a king. And also, I love Star Trek too, so live long and prosper. I like the old stuff, though. The new stuff is garbage. Fab Daddy says LA police are popping off on the people. People probably should stop showing their butt. Go to Florida with that nonsense. I just heard the cop say today, if you try any stuff like that here, we'll tell your parents where to pick up the remains because we're going to kill you graveyard dead. Yes, that's what all police should be doing. No religion is good, says Jocelyn. Correct. All religions are slivers of the truth. All of them. They take what they understand of the truth and make a religion out of it, or what they want it to mean and make a religion out of it. All religions are that way. There's only one true thing. Read the Bible, study the Bible, understand the Bible, stay away from religions. Fab Daddy says they are being corralled and getting gassed. They put themselves in that position, Fab Daddy. I'm not getting corralled and getting gassed. Do you know why? Because I kept my butt at my house where it belongs. And I'm talking about it on the internet where it's reasonably safe and free speech is protected. And I don't have to say things that are too outlandish here. Lewis says, which corrupt book should we cite? You shouldn't cite any corrupt books, Lewis. You should read the Bible, King James Version. It's the closest one to the actual text that we have. And no, it's not corrupt. If you want corrupt, read the new revised version of the Bible. That one's corrupt. Read the original. It's better. Amy says, my faith is everything. My faith is my everything. Without Jesus, I would have given up a long time ago. Amen, sister. Spec Lobby says, I was talking about banning the Free Palestine guy, but his message was gone, and I wasn't telling the Muslims to leave. I got you. That's all right, Spec Lobby. You're not wrong. The Free Palestine guy should probably keep that to himself, because my response would be, show me Palestine on a map, and then we'll talk. Until then, what are you saying? John H. says, they even got a Black Hawk in the air and real military as well. Yeah, that's what it means when the Marines are sent in. They ain't bullshitting. They're sending in the real army. And if Gavin Newsom keeps on letting those people act up, they're going to find out what the real army can do with a quickness. And they're going to find out that it ain't stand there and yell at each other like they're accustomed to on college campuses. They get a few heads kicked in, they're going to be like, oh, maybe we should sit down and shut up. Amy says, Spec, I got him. O says, Quran or Bible is shit the same. No, it's not the same. Same bullshit, different form. Nope, you're incorrect. If you actually read them, you would know the difference. But you haven't. I can tell that because you're saying that kind of nonsense. The Bible is a handbook. It was written by 66 different authors over a period of about 4,500 years. And so far has been absolutely correct in every way I've tried to test it. And it has been the anvil that has worn out many hammers over the years because many people smarter than me have tried to disprove it way more than I have. And they haven't been able to do it either because it's not bullshit. It's real. It's a real document. And it's talking about real events that really occurred. The Quran is pretending to be a real document. that was written by a con artist trying to gain favor from the people following the Bible. And if you want to actually read them, then you'll know the difference. You can't just run your mouth about things you haven't actually experienced. Wait, what says, I believe the Bible has been abused to execute authority and do not give it authority or power, especially to groups, but I respect it and believe in a God, not an authority that says they work for him. Well, listen, you're not wrong. The first thing the devil did was start making scribes. That's where the Kenites disappeared to. If you read the Bible, you know who they are. They're the descendants of Cain, which originally were construction workers, and then they turned into writers, oddly enough, people that scribe news and keep records and things like that, so that they could corrupt them. And there's plenty of versions of the Bible in the world that are corrupted because they are revised versions. They are twisted. They leave things out. They add things that didn't go there in the first place. It's very hard to know what the truth is. And you can't even 100% say that the truth is the truth. But you got to believe in something. My choice is to find the oldest document that is a first document, which means it'll hold up in court, and follow that. And that's what I did. You can trace the King James Version Bible back to Antioch at its inception. You literally can't go any further back than that. That's the one I read. And it so far has been accurate, and I've tested quite a bit of it. Not all of it. As for God, anybody with two brain cells to rub together can look outside at the wonder that is the universe and know that there is a God. Only a fool says there is no God. Only an idiot believes in nothing. That being said, if there is a God, which there is, and he is the creator and ruler of this universe, which he is, then it's behoven upon us to know what he wants, to understand why we're here. That's what you can find out by reading the Bible. There are people that feel led to, called by God, to teach the Word of God. I'm one of such people. No, I can't say that he told me to do so, but I feel like he gave me the opportunity and the tools to be able to do it, and I feel led to do so, which is what I'm doing, what I'm told, metaphorically speaking. I'm being obedient, metaphorically speaking. That's why I say I work for the guy. I didn't ask you for any authority. I didn't ask you to believe any word I said. In fact, I say often, don't listen to any man, not even this one. Sure, let me guide you, but look for yourself. Take every word I say and scrutinize it. Go out there in the world and fact check me. It's easy to do. If I'm wrong, don't ever listen to anything I say again. But if I'm right, pay attention. Simple. Speck says, thank you. He didn't see, so he thought I was talking about the Muslims. But it's all fine. Right on. And I am apt to get things wrong from time to time. Spec Lobby, just look beyond it. I'll catch up eventually. Or you can correct me. John says, Fab, going past the curfew, that's why. Why they're being tightened up. And Amanda says, yep, Trump is over it. He told them to shut it down any way they have to, by any means. That could get ugly. Fab Daddy says, I saw millions of protesters today, and I watched about 5 minutes of the parade. I haven't seen either one yet. April Rains here. She says, hey, y'all. Hey, April. How you doing, darling? By the way, like, subscribe, share, support, join, and super chats are available in the chat box. You want to show a little bit of love if you want to. You can do that right over there. I appreciate you very much. Or hit that CashApp, $ JakeJohnsonBand. I could use about $60 in my life. Now, go over to Facebook.com/UntetheredLive family if you want to hang out, if you want to get to know everybody outside of YouTube, outside of their oppressive little fingers and me misinterpreting everything you read. In fact, I'm not even there, so go check it out. And get a t-shirt. Join the channel. There's a join button down there. You never know what's going to happen, but above all, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notifications and share the video with people you love. Do all those things, and I would greatly appreciate it. Now, back to you. Amy says, hi, April. Jocelyn says, is the streaming on Twitch too? No. But it is on Spotify and Amazon and Wimkin and Google and a bunch of other places. Rumble. It's on Rumble. Twitch is a dying bird, so I didn't bother putting it over there. There might be some episodes over there, I don't know, but I didn't put it on my list of things to do. Amy says, hey, April. Mobius says, why Georgia's girls smile and wave just polite? Yes. Not only are they polite, they're sexy as all get out. That Georgia smile is a thing of its own. There's nowhere else on earth that has that look. I think it's a personality trait. Creed says, hey there. Hey, Creed, are your arms wide open? Fab Daddy says, Amanda, Trump doesn't control the LAPD. No, he doesn't. I would imagine the governor of that state does. KG says, how would you know what a universe of pure chaos looked like if you have never been there? Well, I can look up. How about that? Amy says, drinking my Code Red Mountain Dew, and then I'm going to my garden. Well, I'll drink a sip with you. I got the green kind, but I'll drink some with you. Here's to you, Amy. KG says, in order to discern between chaotic and ordered world. Well, how would you know to ask that question? Are you asking me how I would possibly know the difference between Erev and Boker, or order and chaos, or darkness and light, or good and evil, or Coke and Pepsi, or up and down, left and right? Because I'm a human being and I have agency and free will, and I can ponder the universe as it sits without having been there. Because God, in his infinite wisdom, gave me a brain with such power to do so. That's why. Whether he gave you one or not is yet to be seen. So let's see. Next question, please. Jim Borganini says, Trump. Borganini? Borghini? The great Borghini says, Trump, Trump, Trump. I'm with you, buddy. Hi, and welcome to the show. Creed says, how do you feel about the blacks? Those dastardly blacks? I don't know. How do you feel about them? I have some friends that have that color, or designation, rather. I much more care about what kind of person you are. I really don't give a shit what color your skin is, unless it could benefit me in some way. And then we'd have to talk about it. Why? What kind of question is that? How do you feel about the blacks, or the reds, or the greens? Are there greens? I don't know. How do you feel about the yellows? Amanda says, but the National Guard and the Marines are kicking ass and not taking names. Ooh. Are they chewing bubblegum? Wait, what says? That is what I'm saying. Chaos is the order. I hear you. Well, there is some order to chaos. You're correct. That's what the yin-yang symbol has been depicting for thousands of years. Light and dark, and a little bit of dark in the light, and a little bit of light in the dark. It's all the same thing at some point. Amy says, Creed, people are people. Right on. Jim Borghini says, oddly, none of these protests when Obama deported millions. Right. Isn't that weird? Isn't it weird that the exact same thing happened under both previous administrations and nobody said a word until now? When they're paid to be there, when their material is provided for them in a state where it doesn't get too hot or too cold or too rainy. You think they're protesting like that in Arizona? Scottsdale, nothing. Cartier Schnushki says, Hey, look, it's Andy Reid 25 years ago. That's the second person that has said that. Who's Andy Reid and why do you think that? And my name is Jake Johnson, by the way. And Amanda says, Creed, we don't see color. That's not true. I see all the colors. I just don't care. I know what you mean by that. We don't acknowledge color because color doesn't matter. Black people are good people if they're good people. If they're crappy people, they're crappy people. Same thing with white people. You don't have to be a color to be trash. I see black people just fine. I just don't care that they're black. I'll know everything I need to know in the first 5 minutes of talking to them. How they respond to me, how they talk to me, how they act accordingly, and how they hold themselves. That's what matters. You judge a person by the content of their character, not an immutable characteristic that they can't change. Amy says, who's Andy Reid? I don't know. Forever Blue Roses says, Norma, God's right on time. He usually is. Fab Daddy says the National Guard was cool today. It was the LAPD creating the chaos. Imagine that. I don't need to point out to you that they work for California, right? You do understand that. The National Guard works for the president. Just pointing that out. Cartier says, Kansas City Chiefs head coach. Right on. Is that, you're calling me a pedophile. I get it. No. Amy says, sure enough. Sure enough Hill? I don't know. Forever Blue Roses says, Jesus has waited longer than we have. We can endure. Yes, we can. Punctuation is nice. It gives me an idea what the sentence is. Derek says, do you know about Operation Crossfire Hurricane? Yes, I do. I know quite a lot of bit about it. I've been living through it for the past 4 years. Crossfire Hurricane is the deep state weaponizing themselves against Donald Trump to keep him from becoming president of the United States, because presidents are picked by an organization that don't have faces and names, and those are the people that really run things. And when you get a wild card like Trump in office, he don't follow the rules. They can't buy him, and they can't put pressure on him to make him do whatever they want him to do, not even by shooting at him. So they wanted him not to be president, because you can't have a president you can't control, or else he might change the game, which is what Trump is doing currently. Operation Crossfire Hurricane ended up being a massive failure and is the reason that a lot of people are going to end up going to jail at some point, but not in quite a few years, because it takes time for things to happen in Washington. Jim Borghini says, Ultra MAGA. I prefer dark MAGA, thank you. And sometimes red MAGA. CEO Jamar 1203 says, speed up. No, I'll take my time, thank you. Fallen says, hello, Kiwi. Here, you can give your quick summary of the state of things in the U.S. pre-COVID and post-COVID. Yes, you can. My summary of things is, pre-COVID, we had yet to have lost our minds collectively, and post-COVID, most certainly lost our minds collectively. And now we're paying for it. Debbie says, Amanda's in the kitchen where she belongs. Next, she will be barefoot and pregnant. If I had anything to do about it, you're absolutely right, she would be. Because I'm a man, baby. I'm also 50, and that's not likely, so. Eric Brooks says hi. Hello, Eric. And Amanda says, oh, Lord, Debbie. And Amy says, I wish I could find a buyer for my Harley. I wish I could afford your Harley. I'd be a buyer for it. Tom says, message deleted. Eric Brooks says, spot on. Thank you, Eric. And Amy says, hi, Eric. And Amanda says, you'll find one, Amy. Kimberly Sarah says, or Kara, you are incorrect, sir. That is what Trump administration has told you. Now, Trump administration has not communicated with me at all, Kimberly. I am not incorrect. I apologize to inform you. I didn't get my education at a woke school. I got mine at an actual school where they taught actual thought. So, no. And by the way, what do you think I'm incorrect about? Because, I can't read your mind. But I appreciate the tenacity. And then my chat jumped. So I got to find where I was at. Hang on. All right, I'm pretty close to that now. All right. I'm back. Amy says protests are peaceful. When fires and things get damaged, that's no longer a protest. Correct. As long as you're protesting your mind, nobody will say a word. But the minute you break a law, the minute you become hands-on, you are no longer protesting, and that's no longer protected speech or free speech or anything else, or the right to peacefully protest. Your rights have then been removed. Wait, what says those pallets of bricks were in France, not L.A.? Oh, I think you better look again. Amy Elizabeth says, Tom, it's been fact-checked as true. Rich S., what's up, buddy? Look at that sexy J-tag by your name, buddy. You stand out in the crowd. I saw you before I saw anybody else. What's happening, my friend? Rich says, Amy Elizabeth, you were looking for me? JW. Just wondering. Wait, what says there's also legal issues behind the protests due to how law enforcement came into the area and certain things Trump has done. Again, Trump is the president of these United States. It is his right and it is his authority to do whatever he wishes to do to this United States of America. He's the president. He's the commander-in-chief. If he says go in, they go in. That's constitutionally protected and sound doctrine. Sorry, you might not like it. He's the guy in charge. And you will listen, one way or the other. Mobius says, some people get sucked into the paid protests. Yes, they do. Wonder why there are paid protests. Hey, Debbie, and whoever it was that said that sandwich comment, watch this. See how that works? That's what happens when you get out and work your tail off and pay the bills and do your job and treat your lady like a queen and act like a man. You get a lady that does that. And that is worth protecting and building and defending and anything else, any other adjective you can add to it, it's worth it. Sandwich is almost a consolation prize at that point. Amanda says, hi, Rich. Amy says, LOL, a bunch of new maroons in the chat. Bunch of maroons. Josh M., watch your mouth. Kimberly says, it is absolutely not paid protesters. You're wrong. There are absolutely paid protesters there. These people want our democracy to remain in place and protect our Constitution. Really? Then why are they doing things that are actually against the Constitution? Can you understand that? You understand that people that come into our country illegally is against the Constitution. Protesting for them to stay in the country is against the Constitution. Have you read the Constitution? Do you even know what that document says? I don't think you do. And yes, there are paid protesters out there. I didn't say all of them. I just said that they are organized. That means somebody is calling the shots. Somebody is footing the bill. People don't just come together for no reason like that everywhere. Rich says, hi, pals. Hey, Rich. Amy says, message retracted. I can't read your message if you retract it. Eric says, hi there. Can I ask you, what do you think of Tommy Robinson? I don't know a lot about Tommy Robinson. I guess it was about 8-9 years ago. He said some stuff that made sense and got put in jail for it. And I thought his incarceration was very bad. I thought it was bad for the country that they were in, and I thought it was bad news for free speech in general. That being said, I don't know a whole lot about him personally or what he is currently fighting for, so I really can't comment on that. If you care to fill me in, I'll tell you what I think about the subject matter, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Good question, though. Thanks, Eric. 8 or 9 years ago, though, I thought, sure, this guy's a fighter for the cause, you know. I don't know what he stands for today, though. He's been kind of quiet. Been in jail a long time. He shouldn't have been in jail in the first place. Amy says, paid rioters, not protesters. Right. Protesting is constitutionally protected speech. You can protest. But the minute you touch something that belongs to someone else, you are no longer protesting. The minute you stand in the street and block traffic, you are no longer protesting. The minute you firebomb a police car or kill an individual or any of the things that they do, you're no longer protesting. That's not legal. Wait, what says there's plausible claim to an insurrection being incited by Trump. No, there's not. You can't insurrect if you're the president. Think about what you're saying. January 6th was not an insurrection. That's what they tried to paint it, and they also tried to create it to look like it was, but it wasn't. That's why nobody on earth believes that it was, even if they've shut you down for saying so, and I'll probably get blocked by YouTube for saying so, whatever. It wasn't. I know it, you know it, and the people that blocked this video know it, so there it is. Batshit Crazy says, what's up? Hey, Batshit, nice to see you. Amy says, hi, Rich. And by the way, to those who would have this video blocked, and to those who believe that that sort of thing was an insurrection, at some point, the grown-ups are going to stand back up and slap you to the ground. We're not going to keep putting up with it forever. People are getting tired of this nonsense. Sure, you might shut me down today, but write it down that I said so before you hit the cancel button. I will win the war because you don't know how to fight. And I know how to write in cursive and read battle plans and maps and drive a stick shift. You don't. Understand. You might win the battle. You will not win the war. And the only reason you'd win the battle is because we're trying to be peaceful about sharing our feelings with other people. We're doing what the Constitution says we're allowed to do. If you shut down us for that, you're the bad guy. And at some point, people are going to get sick of it and start treating you like the bad guy. Be warned. But this woke nonsense is over. It's over. And it's going to get increasingly worse for those wokies. Why? Because you pushed too far. You had everything. You should have just left well enough alone. But you just kept pushing. And now you're going to find out what it looks like when people actually start doing the things you're accusing them of doing. When people actually colonize you. When people actually subjugate you. When people actually stand up and become oppressors. You're going to notice that history doesn't fare well for the other guy when the people that you blame tend to do the things you blame them for. What do you think is going to happen when the, quote, white guy actually decides to take what's yours? What do you think you're going to do about that? Not a lot. Read history. Amy says, hi, Rich. And Amanda says, hey, batshit crazy. And Real Josh says, the Bible says man killed the earth. Well, actually, the Bible says that man introduced death into the world. It's a little different. The earth isn't dead, so no, the Bible doesn't say that. But thank you, Real Josh. You are not far off. Man did cause sin to come into the world, and by sin came death. So things die because of man. The earth isn't going to die, though, until God destroys it. Amy Elizabeth says, I don't watch Fox News or CNN or MSDNC. I have a guy in Navy intelligence that I get my information from. What else you got, Tom? And Amanda says, Tom, your TDS is showing. Right on. Amy says, hi, batshit crazy. Wait, what says, as well as human rights issues concerning due processes not taking place and Americans ending up deported. Well, that's bound to happen. If you're going to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. And there's a lot of Americans that stick their nose into things they shouldn't be sticking their nose into. And when you get wrapped up with, if you lay down with dogs, you get up with fleas, is what I'm saying. You get wrapped up with the wrong crowd, you might get it deported with that crowd. But know that the deportation is coming. Get out of the way. Let them do their job, and you won't have that problem. John 8 says, what it is, they want Trump to be impeached, them liberals. Yes. Amy says, sling insults at me got you banned, Tom. Slinging insults at me got you banned. Don't insult the ladies. I didn't tell you don't do that. Rich S says, Tommy Robinson is super extreme, although he is not off base with what he says, and he is willing to take his licks for free speech, so that says a lot. Okay, well, that's about all I know about him. It's a good question, but I don't really know much about the guy because he's in another country, and I don't really follow that circle of thinking, so I've heard of him. I don't have anything bad to say about him. John H. says, kick butt, Amy. Amy says, debate this, fine. But when you start insulting, it's done. You're booted. Debate is fine. You can debate. Don't insult. Rich S. says, never mind. Tom M. got booted. Well, there you go. Oh, you weren't. Oh, Tommy Robbins. Yeah. Okay. That confused me there for a second. Amanda says, I'm not old and I'm a MAGA. And it's because we see the truth, because everything is bullshit. Yeah, if you stick around here long enough, you're going to learn that everything you think is bullshit. And everything I think is bullshit. And pretty much everything is bullshit. At some point, it just becomes bullshit. It's a good cup of coffee. Thank you, Amanda. Elsa says, peopling the earth. Peopling? You've been listening to that Terrence Howard guy, haven't you? The earth doesn't people. The earth spins and we people. Elsa says, is it Flag Day too? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know what Flag Day is. Malice in Society says, God isn't real and neither is the Jewish gene pool. Wow. You really are a moron, aren't you? Batshit Crazy says, AE71, FJR13, Yamaha, etc. HD have widely known mechanical problems. Hassle. Are you saying you have a motorcycle that has issues? Amy says, if you're watching, please press the thumbs up button and subscribe. Super chats are available. Or hit that Cash App, $ Jake Johnson Band, and PayPal at paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate you. Yes, please do. I'm about $60 in the hole. I could use it. If you have it. If you don't, that's fine too. Rich S says, I used a devious method tonight to get servers at a restaurant to sing happy birthday to Donald Trump. Oh, really? I told them it was my birthday. I told them it was my dad's birthday, and it would be great if they could sing happy birthday. Did they? That's fantastic. Amanda says, see you, Josh. And Rich S says, except my dad's name is not actually Donald. Well, you devious little man, you. Well, I'm glad you did that, and I'm sure he didn't hear it, but it's nice. It's nice that you acknowledged our president's birthday. General Grunt says, no, I'm not. All right. No, you're not what? Are you code switching on me there? John says, here's £5. Does that help, Jake? Thank you, John. It will on the 23rd. Thank you for the £5 super chat, my friend. Malice in Society says, and they all rot away. What rots away? What are you talking about? If God loved you so much, why would he damn you to a life of withering? Well, we don't wither, we die. Plants wither, we don't. That's wrong. So that just shows that you're a very sophomoric thinker. Let me explain it to you so that you'll know. God loved this world that he created for a specific purpose. He created mankind to willingly love him. He wanted to be loved. He created a race of beings capable of loving him. Here's the catch, though. Love requires effort on the other person's part. You can't just program in love because that's not love. That's a robot. He already has angels that love him uncontrollably, and they just day and night worship God. I imagine that gets old because it's not genuine to start with. So, in order to actually love God, you have to have a choice, or else it's not love. If you have to do something good, you have to have a choice, or it's not good. What does light mean in the absence of darkness? Nothing. It doesn't have any value. Light has no value in the absence of darkness. So God gave you a choice. He gave you free will. You can do whatever you want. This is your ship. You can sail it across the 7 seas, or you can turn and drive that sucker right into the rocks. Either way, God will let you do it because you have free will. Ultimately, if you're a smart individual, you will come to love God because of all the beautiful things he gave you. He did put us in the Garden of Eden, and he says, all these trees you can partake from, meaning people. Trees mean people in the Bible. Don't forget that. Here's the tree of life, or Jesus Christ, and here's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or Satan. All the trees you can have, don't touch that tree. If you touch that tree, you will die. Don't do it. I forbid it. And then he backed off, hands off. Guess which one we chose? Out of all the trees in the garden, guess which one we chose? That's why. That's why we live in the world with so much evil in it, because we chose it. All the evil in the world is our fault, not God's fault. Yes, he made it available, but we're the ones that did it. And the only reason it is available is so that you can choose not to do it. That choice is just as valid as the choice to do it. And that's why. And the last thing is, we don't wither, we die. This clay pot is a vessel that contains a spirit, and when it breaks, the spirit returns to the Father that gave it, and the clay pot dies. It doesn't wither. The thing that withers can come back to life. Amanda says, I'm a military organism. Organic life form. Okay. Amy says malice. God says no sometimes. Correct. The answer is no sometimes. Sly Buster, watch your mouth. Amy says malice. The body is just a vessel. Right. It contains the spirit which is in heaven currently. Where is heaven? Wherever God is like Air Force One. Wherever God is, that's heaven. Thank you for subscribing, R&R Currency and Collectibles. Nice. Dakota Wright says, hey, friends. What's up, Dakota? Nice to see you. Amy says hi. Amanda says hi, sorry. Amy says hi also. Dakota says, hi, Amy Elizabeth. Amanda says, tag team, Amy. Dakota says, hi, Amanda. Mark Gibby's back. Wouldn't that be great, says Mark. Hello, Mark. Nice to see you. Long time no see. Wouldn't what be great? Amanda says hi, and Mark says hi, and Amanda says Vance 2028 and Trump Vice President 2028. That's also conceivably possible, which would be weird, but doable. Thawana Alves, thank you for the subscription also. I didn't mention you when it popped up because I didn't see it, but I see it now. Nice name, Thawana. Thawana Alves. Carol Ann Ramsey says, hi. All right. John H. says, hi, Dakota. Thumbs up. And Dakota says, hi, John. And Amy says, Trump can't run for president again. Only 2 terms are allowed. Correct. But he could run for vice president. He could do that. Batshit Crazy says, no other Trump POTUS anytime soon. Zero plausibility. Not true. He has 3 sons that, if go in order, will all be eligible to be president. And a daughter, but I don't think she'll run. Amy says, Jesus is the King of Kings. Yes, he is. Mark Gibby says, I think we are so close to the beginning of Gog and Magog war. It's all lining up. Yeah, but I don't think it's going to happen just yet. That's not quite time for that yet. There's a couple of things that have to happen before that happens. One of which, and most notably, is the rebuilding of the temple. So keep your eyes on Jerusalem for that. When you see that temple going up, and it will go up, write it down that I said so, that's when you need to start worrying. Batshit Crazy says, Marines utilized very specifically. Right on. But, Mark, we are not far from it. You're right. And we are in the end times, but we're at the very beginning of it. There's still some things that have to occur before it all starts really getting into action. Amy says, King James Version. That's the only version in the world as far as I'm concerned. Eric Brooks says, we do. You do what? Amy says, narrowly prove it. The Buffalo 22 says, yes, sir. Psalms 137:9 doesn't sound like a loving God. Well, you need to read the whole thing. Exodus 21 doesn't sound loving. Well, again, you need to read the whole thing. There's a reason he's acting that way. Pity we can't do that in England. Do what in England, Eric? And there's obviously some things in England that you can't do that we can do here, and I do apologize for that. But that's the reason we broke off on our own in the first place, and I hate it for you guys. Amanda says, Buffalo, learn the Bible before you talk. Probably a smart move. You're calling up things you don't understand. Read the whole thing and understand why he's doing what he's doing in those verses. Eric says, have freedom of speech. I know, right? It's terrible. It's getting to where we can't have that here. But it ain't by choice. It's by extremists, rattling the cage and us not doing anything about it. Amy says, freedom of speech, but no freedom from consequences. Right on. Tim says, 1 cheeseburger and a cola, please. How about a cheeseburger in paradise, buddy? Debbie says, Lewis, since you missed the day this was taught, an immigrant is someone who comes from an established country to live in another established country without being invited. Oh, sorry. That's an immigrant. An illegal immigrant is one that comes without being invited. Amy says, George, that's nonsense. I don't even know who George. Oh, George, I got you. George, watch your mouth. Amanda says, LOL, Amy, I could make his head spin with the Bible. Right on. And the Buffalo says, yep, trash books. Well, I don't know what you're referring to there, Buffalo, but there's no trash books in the Bible. They're all great books, and they're all accurate. And if you don't know that, it's because you don't know as much as you think you do. Psalms 137:9. I understand. I heard you the first time. Read the whole thing and understand why he's doing that. Amy says, not proof of anything, LOL, you're silly. And the Buffalo says, you haven't tried that hard. I don't know what you're referring to. I'm not trying hard at all. I'm just having a conversation. It's been disproved. If you're talking about the Bible, no, it has not. Amy says, it's called a sense of humor. Get one, Narui. He trolled you and you fell for it. Steve Rocket says, Muhammad was a liar and a child molester. Well, according to what I've read, you are correct. Amy says, I've had enough of your blasphemy, George. Yeah, don't blaspheme. This isn't the place for that. And you're done too, Nari. Well, if you guys can't carry on a decent conversation, beat it. You don't need to be here. This is a place for adult thought. If you don't have any, go somewhere else. You're wasting everybody's time, including yours. You can disagree with me all you want, but you must follow the rules, and the rules are be nice to the ladies, don't be a blasphemer, and don't waste everybody's time. We're here to learn something, not waste time. The Buffalo says no. Well, I'm glad you think so. No one else shares your sentiment, though. Amanda says, good job, Amy. I was over it, too. And the Buffalo repeats herself. Nope. I'm saying she because it sounds like a she. Christopher Hitchens would do you good. I've read Christopher Hitchens, and he made up what he says he knows. Come on. Christopher Hitchens is good for 9th graders. That's very sophomoric thinking. I'm slightly above the 9th grade. I'm sorry you're not. It's Psycho Saturday, tell that. Right on, John. Why are they wrong? Who are they? I don't know what you're talking about. Add context to your statements. I can't read your mind. Amanda says, Buffalo, you're on your way out, too, if you can't carry on a decent conversation. It's all right if you want to ask questions. It's all right if you disagree. Say something of value. Don't just keep repeating yourself. Polymathing says, what do you think the Sumerians were onto with their gods? Epic of Gilgamesh, oldest story in writing. Well, the Epic of Gilgamesh is partially in part the story of Noah and the flood. Gilgamesh was one of the sons of the sons. Anyway, what they were onto is polytheism. They were worshiping false deities mentioned in the Bible. If you read the Bible, you'll know why that's commandment number 1 and number 2 for a reason. They were sinners, which is why they no longer exist. They were destroyed. See there, Buffalo? There's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. You wrote, God said do it. I don't know what it is, and I don't know why you're saying it. If you want to talk to me, say something of value that has a subject and an object and a noun and a verb, hopefully. Amy says, stop cherry picking the Bible, Buffalo. Correct. If you're going to read it, read the whole thing. Steve Rocket says, good work, truth teller. God bless you. Thank you, Steve. I'm trying. Keaton McAndrew says, why? Or yo. Are you for Republicans or Democrats? I'm for neither one, Keaton. I'm for me. That's who I'm for. And you. And Amanda says, Republican. Keaton says, okay. Can you yell, fight, fight, fight? Sure. Fight, fight, fight. Why are you yelling? I can hear you just fine. Amy says, I'm for common sense. Both sides are corrupt. One side more than the other. True. MAGA isn't really Republican, although you might think it is, and I understand why you think it is. It's kind of not. It's actually more libertarian than anything else, but you got to call it Republican if you're going to run for Republican office, because only a Democrat or Republican's going to win. So that's why Trump ran as a Republican. But Democrats have lost their damn minds. As far as they go, the old liberals I can handle. They believe something different than me, but they were genuinely good people. The new ones are lunatics. Keaton says, that's what I'm talking about, man. Wait, what says the last 10 to 20 minutes of We in L.A., last live stream show that the LAPD were shooting tear gas and rubber bullets, and the Marines didn't really leave federal buildings, and she even praised them. Who is she? I don't know who you're talking about. Wait, what? The last 10 to 20 minutes of We in LA. Is We a show? Or WE? I don't know what that is. Last live stream show. I don't know which live stream show you're talking about, but she shouldn't be praising them. Debbie says, I feel about blacks with my hands. Right on. Keaton says, go Trump fight Iraq. Well, I hope not. I hope we can stay out of that nonsense. John says, every human is a color. Facts. True. I myself am Native American mostly. I know you can't tell it by looking at me. God has a sense of humor, but I am. Keaton says, how old are you? You don't have to answer if you don't want to. I just was wondering. I'm 50. Going on 375. How old are you? Amy says, arcade piano? I was born here, therefore I'm indigenous. Right on. Keaton says, Trump showed the African president for killing all the whites. Right. Well, that's a strange thing they're doing over there anyway. They've been doing that for about 20 years. And it's funny that it's taken this long to even say something about it, but that's been going on for a while now. And, yeah, Trump showed him up, made him look silly. He needs to do that more often. And Debbie says, arcade piano, go research unincorporated lands. Yeah, I hate to tell you this, arcade piano, but every country was taken from somebody by someone else. That's the nature of countries. It's always been that way. It always will be that way. And when we get conquered, someone else will take over this place. Amy says, arcade piano, I'm born here. This is where I belong. Correct. And better, why don't you go where you think you belong and leave everybody else alone? You're responsible for you. I don't see you leaving, so that says something. Boy, the chats are long tonight. What's going on in the U.S. right now, says Mix City, or whatever that says. Mostly a bunch of nonsense. Mick says, my British ass is oblivious ash. I hear you. Zachavi says, Mix, we just casually falling apart. Right on. Debbie says, the Indians were settlers and so were the English. They fought over the land. It was unincorporated, therefore no one owned it or had claim to it. The English won. Get over it. Right on. Well, the funny thing is the Indians were conquering each other before we ever got here. Read the stories about the Apache if you don't believe me. You don't have a clue what you're talking about. You are a privileged little white child who has a mama that probably is so woke she can't even see straight, and you've been raised by the wine bottle. You don't have a clue what you're talking about, and you sound like a moron to the rest of the world. Stop talking, go shopping, and enjoy your life. None of what you're saying has any value at all to anyone. And Mick says, I can see that part at least. Right on. Zachavi says, I hope I'm saying that right. Zachavi. Smiley face with a tear. Or maybe it's throwing up, I can't tell. Maybe it has a runny nose. A smiley face with a runny nose. Louis DeMarco says, NWO in motion in a vague way. NWO? That would be the New World Order for people that are just tuning in a vague way. I see what you're saying. You and what are me, Demogrants. Prior testing. Took you a while to learn that word, didn't it? Mick says, that sounds silly. Well, it might, but it's true. Amy says, then you're disingenuous, Arcade. Mick says, the cup reduced into atoms. All right. I don't know what you're talking about. Mick says, oh, and Debbie says, America paid Mexico $15 million in 1848 for the land. The Mexican protesters are idiots. Also, Texas. This is a lovely hot cup of coffee. Don't you want to have a cup of coffee with me? If so, go to the kitchen, pour yourself a nice hot cup. And if you don't have one, look down in the description. You can get one with my face on it. It's fantastic. But also, we have stainless steel tumblers, the big ones and the little ones with locking lids, Untethered Live Bible Study logo on the front and all my platforms on the back. They look great on a coffee table and they keep your coffee hot for hours. Don't you want to have one of those? Get one while supplies last. Also, like, subscribe, share, support, join, and super chats are available in the chat box. I would appreciate your support if you can do it. Hit that CashApp $ jakejohnsonband. Zachavi says, there's agitators who aren't actually with the protesters. Yes, they usually are these days. The agent provocateurs have been running rampant since the early 2000s, and probably before that, we just didn't notice. It seems like every time there's a gathering, there's a group of people that show up out of nowhere, always dressed exactly the same, black block with black boots and the masks and the riot gear and the And the first thing they do is start breaking stuff. And it doesn't seem intuitive at all. Well, these people aren't breaking stuff. Why are these people breaking stuff? And the next thing you know, here come the police and it's all over the headlines. Almost like they meant it that way. Thanks for subscribing, Arcade Piano. Maybe you'll learn something. Zachary says the protest is due process and no kings. Not keeping illegal immigrants here. Okay. Well, let's see how that works out, Zachary. Amy says, we don't have a king. England is across the ocean. Right. You ever thought about that, Zachary? That there has never been a king in America, ever. We live by a constitutional republic. We are a constitutional republic, and we vie for which it stands. You understand? That protest is stupid. Also, we have due process. What do you think ICE arresting a person is? They get booked. They go downtown. They get booked. They get their markings recorded. They're asked a bunch of questions. They're asked for their papers. If they can't provide them, they're deported. See how that works? That is due process. What do you think due process means? Amy says, I read that one. Zachary says there are organizers and probably donations. True. Donate to this instead. This is a much more worthy cause. But they buy water and bread for people with that, as well as sign materials. Well, that's fine. Buying water and bread for protesters is fine. My question is what are your motives? What are you buying water and bread for protesters for? Are you supporting their efforts? I mean, when you give water to a guy running a marathon, you are supporting his effort to finish the marathon, correct? Otherwise, why are you there? Why are you involved at all? It's not altruism. You don't care whether that person lives or dies. So why are you feeding them? So they can keep fighting your agenda. That's why. That's called a paid protester. I never said they got money. I said they were paid protesters. There's more than one way to pay somebody. Amy says, wait in Mexico for due process. Get in line and fill out the paperwork. Amen. Tamara Fletcher says, what's the topic? Whatever you want it to be, Tamara, however you say that. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. You bring up a subject and we'll discuss it. This show is, after all, about you. Amy says, hi, Tamara, or Tamara, or however you say that. Amy says, politics tonight, Tamara, or Tamara, or however you say that. Zachary says, right, but you can't accurately find out who is illegal or not without due process. True, which is why you have to arrest them if you suspect them of being illegal and take them downtown for due process. That's how that works. You don't get due process out in the streets. You have to go through the system. That's why they're arresting people. So you see, their first initial thing to arrest them is kind of necessary to find out who's here. Because while the previous administration was in office, millions were filtering in unaided. We have no idea who came in and what they brought with them when they came. No idea. You have to hold accountability. You have to find out who's here. You can hold a census, but if they don't show up to the census, what good is it? You got to go get them and count them. That's what they're doing. Timmer says protesting can get dangerous. Breaking into shops and homes, it gets out of hand. Oh, yeah. Try that in Florida. Tamara says, Amy, hi, and thanks. Please hit that subscribe button and share the video. Amy says, Tamara, that's not protesting, that's rioting. Right. Tamara says, protests is plan A. It leads to rioting. Zachary says, due process is investigating and being seen in front of a judge and getting a hearing. Otherwise, it's just throwing people out because someone said they're illegal. Yeah, no, if you don't have documentation, you are illegal. It isn't because somebody said so. It's because they're here illegally. That being said, how do you think they get in front of a judge? I've been in front of a judge a few times in my life, and every time it was followed by an arrest, or it was preceded by an arrest. You have to be arrested and put in jail to go to the judge. That's how that works. You have to be fingerprinted and processed. That is due process. And I said jail, not prison, not solitary confinement, not what they did to the J6ers who did nothing wrong. Wait, what says going straight to petty insults? Who? Who's insulting who? Being called a moron is not petty nor an insult. It's a factual statement. If you're talking about me, because that's the only insult I've thrown, was you really are a moron. That's not an insult. It's a factual statement. And I wasn't talking to you, I don't think. Amanda says, F around and find out. Chris Manola says, I wish America would colonize China. I don't. I wish America would mind its own business and stay out of other people's affairs. And I wish it would sternly keep everyone else out of ours. Amy says, if they went through the process, due process, then they are in the system as legal. If you're here illegally, stay out. Zachary says, why wouldn't you fight to prevent fascism before it starts? Because what those people are doing is fascism. What Trump is doing is not fascism. I think you need to really investigate the meaning of that word. Truth is back. The peaceful protesters were infiltrated by paid groups of disgusting thugs who are doing the looting, breaking, enterings, and arson, etc. It is all staged and a creation of chaos. Yes, truth. I've been saying that from the very beginning. Problem is this you're thinking it's the wrong people staging it. You're not seeing who's staging it. And when you understand why they're staging it and who they are that are doing it, then you understand what the game is here. Unfortunately, the protesters are just useful idiots. They're just out there making noise. The people that are actually in charge of things don't care about their cause. What they care is that they have a cause. That's what they care about. And as long as they have a cause, they can use them to their advantage. But they don't actually care what that cause is. Unfortunately, people have a problem seeing it that way because most people live down here in the dregs. They're not above it where they can see what's happening. Amy says, why would you want to promote breaking the law? Right? Buster2 says, what do you think about all this protesting going on? I think it's silly, and I think people should go home and mind their own business. That's what I think. Louis DeMarco says, mortality. Right on. Persnickety, your turn. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were saying unnecessarily large words. Tamara says, it's so sad that history repeats itself time to time, or time and time again, and it's mostly over religion and resources. However, you can't have a yin without a yang. This is true. Amy says, welcome back, Truth. Zachary says, Amy, agree people shouldn't be here illegally, but you need to give them a hearing to find out if they're illegal or not. A lot of states don't communicate citizenship. Those would be Democrat states, and there's a reason they don't communicate citizenship. If everybody was able to prove that they were citizens, we wouldn't have this problem. So that's kind of the bigger issue. Wait, what says? The Bible does say don't cast pearls before swine. Yes, it does. Do you think I'm doing that? Do you consider the people I'm talking to swine? Because the pearl in that context is wisdom, and the swine in that context is people that don't deserve the wisdom you're spitting. Zachary says a woman was a citizen for 4 years, and then suddenly, when she checked it, wasn't in the system. I wonder how that happened. What was that woman's name? Or did you read that in a newspaper somewhere? Or hear that on MSNBC somewhere? Who was she? Where was she at? And why did her citizenship vanish? Could it be that she overstayed her visa? Which would make her illegal? Guillermo Leal says the great Republic of Texas must and will secede. It comes soon. I'd like to see that happen, Guillermo. I'd like to see that happen, because if you talk to a Texan, they're Texas ride or die until the river runs high. And they're not about to secede anything to anybody. Tamara says, it's pretty bold to be illegal and protest, right? It's also pretty bold to be in a country waving a flag from another country and burning the flag of the country that you just illegally entered. And then whine because you don't have the right to do that. If you love that country so much, you need to go back to it and shut the door when you leave. And if you love this country, you need to stop acting like that and learn to speak English. And love that flag you just burned. Zachary says that's why we need to give them hearings so we can all get information. Well, it ain't all of our business. And they do get hearings. That's what happens after you get arrested and booked. You go to a court and they get a hearing. The reason they're being arrested is because we tried that method you're talking about, just giving them a court date, and they didn't show up. Ever. They just vanished into the country somewhere. This way, they have to show up because they're in jail until they do. That's called a bench warrant. So you could say Trump is issuing bench warrants on all of them. Round them up, get them in jail. That way they have a captive audience. And when it's their time to go to court, they'll actually be there because the jail will make sure they show up. Then you can have your due process. And if they're illegal, they get deported. If they're not, they get released. Amy says, that's an issue between her immigration attorney and her, Zach. Yeah, the woman who lost her citizenship. There's obviously a reason for that. Chris Manola says, amen, brother. I'm 100% for deportations. Yeah, I don't like the idea of deportations. I don't like the idea of having to round people up. But I'm not the one that opened the border and allowed them in the first place. That could have all been avoided, and you should be mad at that. The fact that you're mad at Trump for trying to clean it up is a little bit misplaced. And I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to whoever is. You're not actually focusing on the problem if you're mad at Trump, because Trump inherited this problem, and he's doing something about it, which is less than what the last guy did when he allowed it to happen in the first place. And I bet you voted for that guy. Zach says, if ICE went after her, they wouldn't have given her the opportunity to prove it. And she was never noticed that she wasn't in the system if she has no idea and ICE has no idea and they just take her. Well, The key word in that sentence is if. And you just made that scenario up. That hasn't happened. If it had happened, we wouldn't be talking about it in this fashion. So, you're getting afraid of something that did not happen. Tamara says, first off, if you're illegal, you're a criminal from the get-go. But it's a sticky situation. If I was there, I would want to do the same thing. Agreed. Amy says, LOL, I really doubt this story. If she had paperwork, she wouldn't have had an issue. Right. And most people that come here and become citizens work very hard to become citizens and pay a lot of money to become citizens. They don't just lose their paperwork. And it ain't just in the system. They have actual documentation proving they are who they say they are. So if the system vanished her, all she'd have to do is show her paperwork, and that would be the end of that story. I'll find the video real quick. Well, that's your first problem. You saw it on YouTube. That doesn't make it true. Guillermo says, I'm Latino. No, really. I thought you were Texan and you just liked the name Guillermo. Born and raised in Texas. As were my parents and so forth. And their parents and so forth. We have immigration laws. Deport them all. How do you protest an illegal action? Mexico deports all their illegals. As you should. If you're in Mexico illegally, you should be deported also. I agree 100%. Zachary says, Tamara, being undocumented is actually a civil offense, not necessarily. A civil offense is still a crime. It's only if they commit a crime here that they become a criminal. Wrong. A civil offense is a crime. That's what criminals do. It's not as severe of a crime, but it's still a crime. Tamara says, are pro-Trump. Yes. And John, give me $5 as a super chat. Thank you. Or £5 as a super chat. Thank you. I think that's what? That's $6.79. $7. Amy says, thanks, Nugget. Yes. And Amanda says, thank you, Nugget. And Tamara says, Amy, is this pro-Trump? Yes. Amy says, yes. Tamara says, damn, effing right. Right on. John says, I'm Britain and I'm British and I'm for Trump too. Right on, John. Amy says, go to any other country illegally and see how civil they treat you. Right on. You're liable to get a lot worse than you get here. Tamara says, all these people keep saying he isn't doing anything. First off, he has a lot of corruption to undo. Second off, in the first few months, he did more than Obama during his whole term. True. Yeah, they're going to say anything they can to make Trump sound bad and make them sound vindicated. But they're going to fail because Trump is the man and he's doing a good job. As good as any person could do under the circumstances. Zachary says, are we any other country? No. I thought we were supposed to be better. We are. In terms of treating everyone human. We do. They're not getting shot. They're getting arrested for being illegals. And they're getting a free ride home. That's it. Why do you think deportation is so bad? They have a home. We're giving them a free ride to it. What's wrong with that? Could they be treated any better? Is a question I would ask. Amanda says, Arcade, if God doesn't exist, then how did all this get here? That's a good question. And Amanda says, never mind. Amy says, sorry, Amanda, my patience is running thin, especially when they are blasphemous. Right on. Tamara says, I think God is an energy and vibration, and we are all part of God, and we are all one. I think you're not wrong. Amanda says, LOL, you're good. I was going to take him on a ride anyway. And John says, Amy, you're doing a fantastic job. Heart, time for cake. Right on. Amy says, I just finished off a piece of strawberry cake, Nuggy. And Tamara says, I am blocked. Am I blocked? I am not seeing the message. No, you're not blocked. Make sure you're on all or live chat instead of top chat. Amanda says, you go, Nugget. And no, Tamara, he's behind the chat about 20 minutes. That's probably why you're not seeing it, because I'm reading every chat, and it takes time. So you guys are about 20 minutes ahead of me. And Amy says, Tamara, set chat to all comments, not top comments, under the 3 dots. John 8 says, Amy, And Amy says, tag team. Tamara says, didn't see it. I'm getting to it. Russian says, hi. I'm going to call you Russian because I don't know what that says. Amy says, press the 3 dots, scroll down, and select all comments. And Amy says, hi. Whatever that word is. Truth says, Amy, I just saw your comment there. The whole Western Europe has millions of illegal migrants, Afro-Islamists, and they're treated much better than the local natives on their expense. I don't think that's true at all. And Tamara says, gotcha, thanks. Amy says, that's not my problem, Truth. I don't care what the rest of the world does. I care about my country and people coming here illegally. And Amanda says, that's right, Amy. Strange and Bizarre says, if you entered into the country that wasn't the port of entry, then it was illegal. Right. Our country is big and beautiful, and it has a front door. Use it. If you sneak in through the back or through the window, you're doing it wrong, and you're going to get taken home. Simple as that. Gary Sharp says, can you smoke 2 cigarettes at the same time? I could, but I'm not gonna. Why waste a cigarette? I'll smoke 1 for you, though. Hudson Road says, just a reminder, Jesus loves you and everyone in the stream. Yes, he does, Hudson. Thank you for the reminder. And Truth says, Amy, I did not say this is your problem. You said go to any other country illegally and see how civil they treat you. And I'm telling you how they are treated. And I'm telling you, you don't know that to be true. Amy says, Gary, he's lucky to smoke 1 cigarette at a time. And they keep going out on him and he relights them. Yeah, I light the same cigarette like 5 times because it just sits here and goes out. Gary says, put that cigarette out. Why? Are you offended by my cigarette smoke? Who are you to tell me what to do, sir? Does this look like the face of a 14-year-old? No, sir. I'm over the age of 21 and I make my own decisions. And if I want to smoke a cigarette in my house, in my studio, in front of my camera, in front of my crowd, I'm going to do that very thing. And I don't need anybody else telling me how and when I should do so. Gary? What kind of name is Gary anyway? Tamara says they are getting food stamps and they've been given Social Security cards upon time of arrival under Obama and Biden presidency. They let so many gang members here instead of taking care of our citizens, which is why we have the problem we have now. Or our veterans, right? Tamara says, and the Chinese own most of our farmlands. Trump is fixing this. I hope so, because that's scary. They've been buying up land like crazy for the past 30 years. It's not pretty. Amy says, you're not his parents or his wife, Gary. Right on. And Amanda says, right, Amy, and his wife don't care. Amanda says, last time I checked, he's a grown-ass man. Right on. Christine Marshall, what's up, buddy? Amy says, hi, Christine. And Amanda says, hi, Christine. And Christine says, heart. Amy says, America first, not Republican. Tamara says, a lot of Democrats have switched to Republicans. Yeah, because they're getting sick of the bullshit, too. But there is still a lot of crazy-ass Dems. Yes, there are. Jocelyn says, a lot of vets don't support the involvement of the Marines and even the National Guard in California. Well, that's true. There's a lot of vets in the world. And here lately, pretty much anybody's been allowed to become a veteran, so there's a few of them on the other side, I'm sure. Amy says, message retracted. Jazzy Chaz says, did you hear about the massive Carrefour that just happened? I don't know what a Carrefour is. And so I didn't hear about it, Jazzy. Why don't you tell us about it? Zachary says, well, to be fair, it's usually louder and crazier individuals who are getting the most coverage. Right on. Both sides have crazies on them, true. But both sides also have respectful people. I know that. And I talk to those respectful people from time to time. And I talk to a whole lot of the crazy ones. So there's way more crazy ones on the other side. Not saying the right don't have some crazies, but not nearly as many as the left does. Amy says the two politicians in Missouri were killed because they voted against their party. Yeah. Hold on, my chat just jumped. I got to find where I was at. I was almost at the bottom and then it jumped. What's the number? Yeah, I'm way behind. I may never catch up. Here we go. I'm getting closer. Maybe at some point I'll find it. Good gracious. You guys are killing it. All right, I'm at the top of my chat, and I'm not even close, so apparently it cut out some stuff. So I can't go any higher. I'm just going to have to start at the top. And it starts with Tamara. Wait, I read that one. Oh, okay, I went too far. I'll see what's happened. I found it. Christine Marshall says Vance Bolter's professional background was working with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Right on. Amy says Missouri, Minnesota, one of those states. I think it was Minnesota. I'm not sure. The one Tampon Tim is from. Right. I heard about that, and he was on the news today giving a press conference about it, and he sounded very meek. And I don't remember what state he's from, but it's one of those up there. Minnesota. Tampon Tim, says Amanda. So it is Minnesota. Zachary says Jocelyn and Hegseth refused to provide a mission statement and refused to say he'll abide by the state or Supreme Court decisions. Well, they have to. That's their job. Tamara says, there are corrupt people in all parties. You just have to pick the better ones out of them all. True. Amy says, I knew it started with an M. Right on. Debbie says, Don't diss Missouri, Amy. LOL. Amanda says, he was just on yesterday talking, and there is very little crime in his state, and people don't act the fool, and they showed him. They sure did. Not only did 2 people get killed, but it was 2 people that were in office. Not a good look. And Tamara says, and I don't trust the Pentagon. I don't trust any of the deep state. They've been in power for a long time, and they are not elected officials. So they've stuck in there like ticks. Christine Marshall says, unincorporated area and unincorporated community. I like in an unincorporated community here in Twin Lake. Or I live in an unincorporated community. Unincorporated. Tamara says, I've never seen someone on live that stops to answer every question. How thoughtful. Well, that's the whole thing we're doing here, Tamara. Please subscribe and you'll get to see more of it. And I might not finish tonight because it's already 11 o'clock and I'm not even halfway. I'm going to give it a good shot, though. I'm going to try. If people start super chatting or hitting that Cash App, I might stay longer. But, I got to do what I got to do. A bit behind. Yes, I'm a bit behind, Tamara, but I'll get there. Amanda says, yes, Tamara, 5 nights a week. This is our stream, and he makes it all about us. And that's why we love him. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it is all about you, and we love you. And I don't know if any place else allows you to talk your mind, but this place absolutely will. This is your stream, and that's why it's worth supporting and worth fighting for, because nobody else is going to do that. And I've listened to a lot of streams. They all make it about themselves. I don't. I'm the middleman here. Christine says, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, did a press conference, that's the one I was talking about, and said that the people that got shot were close to him and friends, but never mentioned that he knows the killer assassin, I say. But this is crazy. Did he know the assassin? Is that true? If so, kind of makes you wonder about that guy. Amy says, please continue to watch Tamara every day except Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's right. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm right here, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, except for Sunday. It's at 8. And we do lots of things. We chill, we talk, we play music, we hang out, we fight, we argue, we study Bible. We do a lot of stuff on this channel. Amanda says, yeah, Tamara, but you'll get used to it, LOL, me being behind. And please subscribe, says Amy. Yes, please do. Wait, what says, you can't even read or speak English. I know immigrants that are multilingual and better mannered. You say no insults are allowed by others, but you be spitting not much else than hate. Really? What have I said that was hateful there? Wait, what? I don't recall saying anything hateful to anybody. But if you think that, you go right ahead and think that. And as far as reading English, I've been doing it for the past 2 hours. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And, that's my living. So what are you actually saying? Wait, what? Tamara says, well, I'm kind of hooked. I want to see a little more. Well, come on. And Arcade Piano subscribe. Thank you for subscribing. Gabby says, has Trump addressed the nation about the death of the congresswoman from Minnesota and the hit list? Not yet. Not that I know of. Unless he's done it tonight, which in case I've been preparing for and setting up this live stream, so I haven't really been there doing that. So I'll find out later on. Zach, if he says, I don't believe so. Gabby says, not surprised. Dan Cooper says, where was the riots at when Obama deported over 3 million people? Funny, isn't that, Dan? Amanda says, Tamara, Sunday and Monday we read the Bible and learn it. Wednesday and Friday we have a chill stream and talk about whatever or play music, and Saturday is political. Stafford Visual says, Dems are just a walking rage bait now. Seems that way, doesn't it, Stafford? And Amanda says Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Sunday at 8 Standard Time. And the rest of the nights are at 8:30. I don't know what you're writing there, Amanda. That's incorrect. Every night is at 8:30, except for Sunday, which is at 8. Amy says, bread and water blocks a person's bowels. I'd hate to think of a bunch of constipated rioters, but that's kind of funny. Debbie says, legal immigrants are welcome. They come in through the front door. The illegals came in through the broke window in the back, and they need to be handcuffed and incarcerated or deported. I don't care which. I agree. Zachary says, well, it's only for a day, and they have proper meals later. Right on. Jay says, what do you think of P. Diddy getting out of jail tomorrow? I don't have a thought about P. Diddy. I think he's part of the same old dregs that's been going on for a long time in this world. And I don't think it's going to stop with him, and I don't think it's going to change with him. That being said, maybe he'll be a different guy when he gets out of jail. Zachary says, Jay, I'm sorry, what? Gabby says, he's not getting out of jail anytime soon. Well, apparently he's not getting out, Jay. Tamara says, well, I'll be there Sunday, Monday, and Friday. Cool. As far as reading the Bible, no thanks. I believe in a higher power, and I think Jesus was a real person, and Buddha and all that, as far as God. Well, listen, you don't have to agree with me to hear what I've got to say. At least give it a shot. And I'm not trying to force you. I'm not trying to convert you or save you either. But it is the oldest book in existence, and it is still here. At the very least, don't you want to know what's inside of it? You might find out that you know less about the world than you thought you did. And you might find out that the answers have been right there for you to find this whole time. Or you might find out I'm full of shit. And that's a good way to locate that scenario. And if that's the case, you'll save yourself a lot of trouble by not ever listening to me again. But if you don't want to do Bible study, that's fine too. As Zachary says, better not. Yes, he did, says, that's not how it works. That's not how what works. What are we talking about? And Gabby says, ICE is disgusting, breaking into elementary schools to take children. I don't think that's true, Gabby. And if they went into an elementary school, chances are they were there to get the children of the people they just deported so that they could go with them. Think about that for a minute. Just let that sink in. Would you rather them separate the families? That's what those cages were for, right? The ones that Obama built. Does he know his chat's behind, says Zachary Tough. No, I'm completely clueless as to what's going on right in front of me. My chat is behind because I'm giving you airtime. If you don't want me to be behind, maybe you shouldn't talk nonsense. Amanda says, well, Tamara, you're welcome anytime. But we don't Bible thump. We just read it, chapter, verse, meaning, and explanation, cover to cover. No preachiness. Right on. Amanda says, yes, Zach. He reads the entire chat. That's part of the charm of the show. And since I'm not a speed reader, you have to wait. But I'll get there. And Zachary says, fair. Right on. Tamara says, well, thank you. And Amanda says, absolutely. Dunway-we-dum says, there's no such thing as an illegal human being. You're incorrect, Dunway-we-dum. And you admitted it yourself that you weren't very bright, so let me explain to you. If you are in a place that has a border and you're not from that place or invited into that place, you are in fact illegal. And you will go to jail or worse. Christine says, how ironic. Due process, Trump, no jury, crime, no victim, no witness, no cross-examination of witnesses, no discovery, no legal representation, no due process. This is lawfare designed to expose idiots. Jin Ren Creates says, no, you don't. No, I don't what? Finish the sentence. I can't read your mind. Write like you are assuming that no one else knows what you're thinking. Pretend that the reader has never heard this before when you write something down. Make sure you include all of the details so that everyone that's reading it knows what you're saying. Tamara says, he's going to still be talking and answering questions when everyone goes to sleep, LOL. Sometimes, yes. It's not always that bad. Most of the time we're done by 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock. I try to make it 2 hours during the week, but Saturday gets a little crazy. And I have been known to go for hours. And sometimes when I'm exhausted, I'll just give up in the middle. But I try not to do that. I don't like doing that. I feel bad about doing that because the promise is that everybody gets heard. And sometimes I can't deliver on that promise because I literally can't continue. But I'll try. Zachary says, I'm pretty sure Trump admitted he wasn't doing the entire process. I'm not sure the specifics. But he said if he did it right, then it would take too long. Well, I don't know that that's true, Zachary. And also, saying I'm pretty sure means that you're not sure, which means you might be mistaken. I'm also pretty sure that arresting people that are not illegals is illegal. And we don't want to do that. I'm sure it might happen, but we're trying to avoid that. Chances are, if a person got arrested that wasn't supposed to get arrested, it's because they put themselves in a position they shouldn't have been in. Chances are. Amanda says, LOL, he's getting close now. Not even. Dum says, let's see documentation from all of them from Europe, piles of illegals using your logic. And well, my logic isn't my logic. It's the logic of the world, and yes. But again, there's a difference between a migrant and a trespasser. We're not talking about migrants. We're talking about illegal immigrants. Dan Cooper says, the left screams due process now, but zero due process on the way in. Give me a break. Right on. They tried to elect Kamala Harris, who didn't even go through the caucuses. She did no primaries. She was installed. She didn't win a single vote. Not one. Truth says, amazing to sit back and observe Americans behaving like wild animals on the streets. Arsons and lootings, property damages, arsons, and much, much more. Is this a civilized nation or a third world country? Well, it's a good question, Truth. If the Democrats have their way about it, it will be a third world shithole in no time flat. That's exactly what those policies foster. The Republicans are trying to put a little order behind the law and enforce the laws that are on the books and get people to act civilized. That's what the Marines are there for, to calm people down, to wrangle in control. Bad as it may sound, it's a lot better than having Wild West in the streets, I promise. Keep voting Democrat, though, and you'll keep getting that third world country shit. Try that in Florida, by the way. You notice that's not happening in Florida or Arizona? I wonder why. Don't want to talk about that, though, do you? Amanda says, done, they have passports. Right. The Europeans have passports because they're citizens. Tamara says, I wish every country would mind its own business as far as invasion and resources robbing. But I think all countries should help each other We shouldn't have starvation. There's plenty of food to go around. Well, Tamara, if we minded our own business, we couldn't help other countries. Minding your own business means shutting the borders and staying inward and leaving the other countries to their own devices. And once we amass a certain amount of riches from this country, then yeah, it's all right to share with other people. And I personally think we should mind our business, take care of our citizens, and stop trying to be the world's police. What's happening in China is none of my business, and I don't want to fight over it. Sorry, I had something in my teeth. And by the way, there is plenty of food to go around. What causes it to go tight is when people abuse the system. For example, every McDonald's, and I'm just using McDonald's, every fast food restaurant on planet Earth does this. They cook a certain amount of food, and at the end of the night, they have to take what's left over and throw it in trash bags and then throw it in the dumpster. They cannot give it to people that are hungry. They're going to throw it away. They have to account for it and throw it away. A fresh hamburger, French fries, whatever they serve, thrown away. Untouched, good food, thrown away every single day. If you just took that food and offered it to the homeless, for example, no one would be hungry in America. Just that food, just what's thrown away at the end of the day in restaurants. But there's laws that Democrat governors put in place that stop people from doing things like that. And Tamara says, it's selfish, but when you keep coming and bringing our economy down and killing people, it's a problem. Right on. Amy says, truth, Earth is the third world from the sun. So technically, every country is a third world country. She got you there, Truth. Amanda says, and a passport means you've been screened and checked before entering. Right on. Wait What says, Trump keeps giving unauthorized authority to government programs on the claims of national security, and it keeps ending badly, taking more resources and manpower to fix. All right, wait, what? Let me explain this to you one more time. I know it's hard to understand, so I'll go slow. Donald Trump, he's the president of the United States. You understand that? It is his authority. He was duly elected by the people to have the authority. The reason it goes bad is because Democrats jump in the way of everything he tries to do. He's not being allowed to do what he was duly elected to do by the people, because democracy only matters when Democrats are in office. When a Republican's in office, to hell with democracy. Let's stop that guy at all costs, regardless of what the outcome would be. If they left him alone and let him president the way he wanted to, you would see in very quick succession just how good of a president he is, because when he got in office, all of those executive orders that he put in place were good. When he got in office the first time, everything he did was good. We were breaking records every day with the stock market. Gas prices were down to $1.50 across the country. Everything was good. And what happened? One of the Democrats let a little something slip. Next thing you know, everybody was sick. And now it's all coming out as to how that happened. It could be argued that was done to stop Trump. I don't know that that's the real truth, but it could be. But Trump is the president. Whatever he says goes. He is the authority. The fact that you don't think so means that you don't understand civics at all. Zachary says, Tamara, agreed. There really is more than enough resources to go around, but instead of making deals, leaders like Putin invade and break treaties. No, 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 Zakovi. That was Putin's to start with. If you're talking about Ukraine, go back and understand that Russia has a 2,000-year history. We have a 200-year history. We don't understand that world like we think we do. But that area has always been part of Russia. It's only been recently they decided to strike out on their own, and he let them do it. It was when they started threatening to join NATO that he had a problem, and we pushed them into that. We did that as a country, starting with Hillary Clinton and also Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and all those people pushed that whole deal. 2 times there was a peace deal on the table, and we caused it to get ripped up. One time it was the guy Boris Johnson over in England, but it was at our behest that he did so. 2 times that war could have been over. 3 times since Trump has been in office, it could have been over, and somebody else got in the way. This is about more than what's on the surface. It has nothing to do with treaties. It has to do with surrounding Russia with NATO countries. They don't want to be surrounded, and I don't blame them. If China surrounded us, we'd be getting a little antsy too. If China surrounded us everywhere except for Mexico, and we said, okay, that's fine, Mexico, as long as we can use you to get out to the ocean, that's fine. But if you try to join China, we're going to attack and take you. That way you can't join China. And then they started trying to join China. Would you be upset that we attacked and did the very thing we said we were going to do? That was an incredibly elaborate hypothesis. Christine says, mind their own business. Trump signed back in the Monroe Doctrine. Read it. Gabby says, Trump is in the Epstein files, Gabby. That's a lie, and you know it. Trump, let me tell you something you don't know. Donald Trump is the guy who tipped off the FBI to Jeffrey Epstein in the 90s when he got arrested the first time. Trump was instrumental in his arrest. Trump is the reason he got arrested and ultimately ended up in prison where he killed himself, according to the new guys. The only time Trump is in the Epstein files is when he took a plane to Florida from New York that Epstein owned. He never went to the island. His name is on the logs. We've known about that for years. Anything that Elon Musk said was a lie to get you to stop burning Teslas, and you fell for it. And now Democrats are hollering, release the Epstein files, which they weren't a week ago. Thank you to 4D Chess. I doubt you understand what I'm talking about. According to, wait, what? That was a hateful statement I just gave, but there you go. Amy says, LOL, and Gabby says, he won't release them because he's in them. Moron. He has said repeatedly to release them. It's the FBI that has them. The FBI clearly are not answering to the president in that case. And also, the FBI that was against Trump destroyed evidence that they can no longer release. Vault Tech? Which vault? Zach Levy says, that's a Fallout reference. There's a lot of people in there that we probably wouldn't expect. In where? Zakovi? In the Epstein files. Probably. Probably mostly your people. Wait What says things like deportation and COVID were not an issue until he messed with the programs and the place for them. Really? You think Trump caused... Wow. I'm going to let you believe that. Amanda says, LOL. And Gabby says, just remember, that our current president told people to inject themselves with bleach. No, Gabby, he did not. That's a lie. Go read Snopes, who has had to say that was a lie. That was Democrat talking points. He never said that. He did say that there are chemicals in bleach that kill COVID. It would be cool if we could figure out a way to extract that from bleach and use it as a method to kill COVID, which is true. There's just more to it than that. He's not a scientist. He knew that when he said that. And if you believe that, you really are low on the totem pole. Amy smiles. Wait, what says most illegal immigrants would end up legal citizens through systems we had in place. You mean amnesty? That's not how countries work. Wait, what? Zachary says, I also could not find the video, but she did go to the immigration office and get it resolved. Well, then no problems then, right? But errors like that could be dangerous, and ICE has been using excessive force. Oh, so all this rests on the hypothesis that something could be dangerous, and the excessive force they're using could be applied to a situation that did not happen. Zachary, do you see the problem with that thought? If you don't, I'll explain it to you. Amanda says, Gabby, your TDS is showing. Right on. Tamara says, Trump derangement syndrome? Yes. Trump derangement syndrome, says Amanda. Gabby says, LOL. Christine says, wait, what? Wow and whoa. TTT Mind says, I love Trump, 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 Trump. Right on. Tamara says, true dumb syndrome. I like it. Gabby says, none of this would be happening if Kamala was in office. You're right. You're absolutely right, because if Kamala got elected president, the day after Kamala was elected president, a nuclear bomb would have went off in this country. Because our enemies were just waiting for a woman of that kind of incompetence to become president so they could attack and take over this place. You're absolutely right about that. Dan Cooper says, he did not say inject with bleach. Another BS comment. Biden was talking to dead people. Right on. Yep. If you believe that he said you could inject yourself with bleach, you probably believe he said that there was fine people on both sides too, didn't you? MW says, you look like Ron Burgundy. I take that as a compliment considering that guy's rich. Vin Greaves, watch your mouth. Gabby says, I'm allowed to have an opinion. Sure you are. You're allowed to have your opinion all you want. If you want to espouse it here, though, and it's a moronic one, I'm going to let you know about it. Tamara says, TDS. Amy says, Trump derangement syndrome and Trump devotional syndrome, both are nonsensical. True. LM says, yes, Gabby, but people don't have to like it. True. Amanda says, I would be way worse if Kamala was in office, or it would be way worse. And the border would still be wide open. True. Gabby says, all stocks are crashing. Not true at all. Matter of fact, jobs are way up and the stock market is way up. What you're referring to is a Democrat talking point that isn't true. Debbie says, Gabby, your opinion is stupid. That is my opinion, and I am entitled to it also. Amanda says, nobody is stopping you from talking. Right on. LM says, true. Zachary says, every option last election sucked so much. I thought one was a pretty good one, and he won, so there you go. Tamara says, TDS, true dumb syndrome. Debbie says, Gabby, my stocks are raising. Do you even have stocks? Probably not. And Gabby says, I haven't invested, no. Well, then why do you think you have a right to talk about investments at all? LM says, how do you feel about the supposedly Biden and Obama have deported more to date than Trump? That's not a supposed, LM, that's a fact. Biden deported over 3 million people while he was in office. Those cages to separate families that was talked about last Trump administration, Obama built those. That's not a supposed, that's a fact. Gabby says, I just don't agree with Trump at all. Well, it would help if you had correct information to disagree with, but I understand where you're coming from. Dan Cooper says, Obama deported over 3 million people, more than any president in history. No riots then. And that's not a supposed, that's a fact. Gabby says, he's not a good person and is disgusting online. Well, I didn't vote for him because he was a good person. I don't even have to like him for him to run the country efficiently. I voted for him because, number one, I recognized what I was looking at. Number two, he's a great businessman, which is what the country needs. You don't have to like him. Get your feelings out of your politics. Debbie says, Gabby, then you are spouting headlines that lie. Tamara says, well, this ain't the chat for you then. Gabby says, did he do what he say he was gonna do his first day in office? No. He was on his golf course. That's not true. That's not true at all. He was not on his golf course the first day he was in office, not even the first week. He spent over 24 hours doing executive orders. He did more in 3 days than the other two presidents before him did in their entire administration. Second, if he did not complete something he set out to do on his first day, it's because Democrats got in his way, not because he didn't set out to do it. Wait, what says, what about illegal immigrants that come in through air? Because most did. It don't matter how you come. If you're illegal, you need to go. And we're brought in for illegal sweatshops. We don't have illegal sweatshops here. And get busted all the time so America can compete with Chinese markets. That's not true. We don't have illegal sweatshops here. We have jobs here. That's why they came. I don't think you know what an illegal sweatshop looks like. Amy says, Gabby, drink more wine and less whine. Prices don't go down on the first day like he said. They still aren't going down. I doubt that you do any shopping, Gabby, because they certainly have. Salvin says, I'm wishing that everyone who went to the protests today is healthy, safe, and untargeted by police if anything happens. That's a good thing to wish for, Salvin. Spoken like a true activist. Amanda says, Trump has done everything he said he was going to do. Just some of it is taking more time because there's opposition, not because it wouldn't be done if he had his way about it. Gabby says, I'm just stating facts. You haven't stated a single fact. Just because you say a thing doesn't make it true. The worst part about that is just the slightest amount of research would prove all of that wrong, and you don't even bother to do that. You just believe everything that's shoveled in your ear. You should really think about that. LM says, I think most are being deported for ID theft. I think that some people are, yeah. Wait, what says, probably where these people are really disappearing to. What people? Who's disappearing? Amy says, facts. Me facts, not Gabby facts. Amanda says, you're stating fake news, Gabby. And Gabby says, fake news? Lim foul. Give me a break. There you go. You're still spouting fake news. Dan Cooper says, you're not stating anything, Gabby. Just Trump derangement syndrome talking points. Gabby says Trump would date his own daughter. Please. Come on, man. Why would you think a thing like that? Also, she's been his daughter for a long time. You think if that were true, it would have happened by now. Wait, didn't I read something in a diary once about someone's daughter stating that they would take showers and be inappropriately touched? Yeah, that's right. It was Biden's daughter who wrote that in a diary about Biden. Every single thing your party accuses us of doing, you're guilty of it. Every single thing. That doesn't bother you? And Debbie says, Gabby, does Soros pay you to talk the talking points that, if researched, are found to be false? That'd be a good job. Gabby says, very weird. You are indeed very weird. Gabby says, he kisses Putin's ass. Really? You want to see what he said about Putin last? Why don't you look that up? I'll wait. Jiminy Cricket says, Shaka East Los Angeles in the house. All right. Gabby says, I pay my taxes unlike Trump. Sorry, Trump paid more taxes than you've ever seen every year. His tax records are on record. Go look at them. He held them out to the last minute. It was Rachel Maddow that pushed for them to be released, which is illegal, by the way. That's personal information and not privy to the public. However, they got released illegally, and when she read them live on air, she found out that not only did he pay more taxes than most people, he paid more taxes than her. Dan Cooper says, Gabby, keep spouting your TDS. The election is over. And he won. Jiminy Cricket says, I am Chaka. All right. Congratulations, Jiminy Crickets. Why do you call yourself Jiminy Crickets if you're Chaka? Gabby says, I didn't vote a felon into office either. Just because your guy didn't get caught doesn't make him not a felon. And my guy ain't a felon because what he got arrested for was a misdemeanor. And it got dropped, so no felonies. It got dropped because it was bullshit in the first place, and you know it, and I know it, and there it is. Amy says, Gabby, it was Biden that showered with his daughter, not Trump. LM says, LOL, that's true, Gabby. Amanda says, Trump pays more taxes than any of us. He does. Debbie says, Gabby, go take a shower with your daddy. Biden says that's okay. Gabby says, didn't Biden leave Trump with a great economy, though? Well, eggs were $9 a carton when Biden left office, and a gallon of gas was almost $5. So no, he didn't. Tamara says, oh my gosh, Biden and Obama made such a mess. He has been cleaning it up, doing tariffs on our behalf. The only thing that came out of it was Obamacare. It did help a lot of people, and that's it. Well, Obamacare helped in one way, but hurt in another way. But because of Obamacare, the natural competition of different agencies was not allowed because Obamacare was like the monopoly. So real competition wasn't allowed. So whatever Obamacare was what you got, and it was crazy expensive. If they were allowed to compete, the prices would have plummeted, and we weren't allowed to have that. Free market always works. Remember that capitalism is flawed, but it's the best system we have on planet Earth. It consistently works every time, and you need to really think about that. Gabby says, please, all Trump wants to do is give tax cuts to billionaires. That's why he passed no tax on tips, right? Because a lot of billionaires work for tips. Everything you say, there's at least 3 things I can think of off the top of my head that refute it, that ought to tell you something. If everything you say has at least 3 refutes available, off the top of someone's head, maybe you're not thinking the right stuff. Debbie says Biden left Trump a shit show. Yes, he did. Amy says, if you want him to pay his tax, then change the tax codes, but they won't because they all use the same loopholes. Right. Gabby says Kamala was for the people. Trump is for himself. I can't even with you. The only thing Kamala would have done was cackle us into a world war. Dan Cooper says, no, Biden didn't, Gabby. What country do you live in? Not this one, apparently. The one that MSDNC made up for him. Gabby says, and Kamala was right about everything she said, really. I'm just going to let you believe that. Amy says, billionaires create jobs, by the way. Right. Billionaires spend money, which trickles into the rest of our economy. You don't. LM says, I agree with everything you say, Gabby, but Trump isn't deporting more than Biden. He creates more theater than Biden. Amanda says, shaking my head, LOL, Gabby. That shit crazy says deportation is necessary. It is. Gordon Shepard says, well, cookie. All right. Gabby says, my sister is a type 1 diabetic and her insulin is going up a ton. Well, you just hang on there. It'll go back down. Why do you think that is, by the way? Tamara says, Gabby, please tell me what Obama and Biden did right. I must be in the dark. Amy says, Kamala slipped her way to the top, not really someone to look up to. Right on. And by the way, name one thing she did right. Or got right. One thing. Since she was right about everything, it shouldn't be hard for you to name one. I'm waiting. Zachary says, their main loophole is not counting stocks when doing taxes, so they put all their equity in stocks to avoid paying taxes while still getting the benefit of being rich. So, don't you want to do what you want to with your money? Gabby says, Tamara, Biden and Obama created millions of jobs for people. No, they didn't. Name one. Do you remember when Trump talked to that air conditioning company and they brought a big company back from wherever they were overseas to America and started producing jobs? Do you remember that being all over the news? The reason it was all over the news is because it was shocking, because nobody had done that in a very long time, bring jobs to America and have them hire people on the spot. That was Trump doing that, not Obama or Biden. And he's been doing that ever since. All those coal jobs that opened up, Trump made those, not Biden. He shut jobs down. He opened them up. See how that works? Remember the XLD's pipeline? Or the XL Valdez pipeline, whatever it's called, that Biden shut down on day one? Those were jobs that Trump created, that Biden got rid of. He didn't create jobs. He got rid of jobs. And by the way, Biden's administration counted second jobs. So basically what he was bragging on was that Americans had to work 2 jobs to keep their head above water. And that's why their numbers were inflated, because he counted second jobs. Whereas the Republicans, if you're employed, that counts as a job. John says, if I wanted to migrate to America, I would go through the legal channels the right way, as you should. Gabby says, Obama and Biden want to unite people and Trump causes hate. No, Trump does not cause the hate that you currently are feeling. You just feel it. The devil causes hate. Trump just does something you don't like. You don't actually hate the man because you don't actually know the man or anything about him for that matter. Dan says, Gabby, where are the Democrats' policies working? What state or city? Right. Name a Democrat city that isn't total chaos right now. Just one. Amanda says, that's funny. Trump just signed an EO, an executive order, that will bring all our pharmaceuticals down to the lowest ever. That just happened. And also, he went to the Middle East for a weekend a couple weeks ago, and he came back with $13 trillion for the country. You name any other president that's done that. Debbie says, Gabby, did Soros give you a paper with the talking points that are total lies? Amy says, if I were rich, I'd want to keep my money too, right? Gabby says, really? My sister's diabetic supplies was $3,000 and $500 with insurance. Well, that stuff is expensive. You can blame the pharmaceutical company for that, not Trump. Tamara says, I'm still waiting for the response, Gabby. What have the last two presidents done for this country? I'm still waiting for the response on one Democrat-run city that works, that isn't total chaos. LM says, Amy, you have no proof of that. She was a single woman and not a nun, but Trump did assault women because he was on top. What are you talking about? Are you talking about E. Jean Carroll? You actually believe that crazy woman? Were you there when she was on Anderson Cooper and said she thought rape fantasies were sexy? The same rape fantasy that she was currently having about Trump? That was on national television. They pulled her right then. Notice how that case disappeared after that? Batshit Crazy says, dank per great point. Tamara says, I said besides Obamacare. Tamara says, anything else? Right on. Gordon Shepard says, so I'll be gone by the time you read my comment, but have a fantastic day. No hate or divisiveness here. Just well wishes. Well, thank you, Gordon. And same here. Christine Marshall says the stocks are down because of all the BS geopolitics. But let's remember, most of these stocks that are down has a rally climb for months. Even S&P 500 and almost reached its all-time high record. Right. They're down right now because of geopolitics. But they go up and down all the time. Watch and see how many times they break records while Trump is in office. Go back and look at his last term in office and see how they broke records. And Amy says, so it's Trump's fault your sister is diabetic, Gabby? And Amanda says, falling up the stairs, falling off his bike, can't find his way off the stage or out of a closet, and wanders off into the forest, walks off a live news set. That would be Biden, not Trump. Gabby says, Obama signed the Affordable Care Act into law. Wow. You should look into what that is. In addition to the Recovery Act, you should look into what that is too, which rescued the country from the Great Recession. Well, the Great Recession happened in the 40s, and the rest of that was just talking points. It never actually happened. Amanda says, shall I continue? Dan Cooper says, Trump or Congress have not passed anything in regards to insulin. What are you talking about? Oh. Whipmaster Hart renewed his membership. How you doing, buddy? Long time no see. And thank you for that. Dan Cooper, you should probably look at what the Congress and them have been signing. It was an executive order, by the way. It wasn't Congress. Debbie says, Gabby, my brother is a diabetic, and his copay is $30, so I call bullshit on your talking points. Batshit Crazy says, Poland, virtual zero immigration, crime nearly zero. Right on. But why? Because they deport people. Presley 007 says, Trump, America, America. Gabby says, and Trump wants to take away Obamacare. He should, because then he would make room for friendly competition between providers, which will cause the prices to go way, way, way down. Obamacare only works if you remove all the competition. If the competition is allowed to compete, Obamacare is actually a hindrance, not a help. Gabby says, my insulin has gone up. Well, maybe you have been singled out. Maybe you got a shitty healthcare provider. Maybe you got people taking advantage of you, but that's not the rest of the world. LM says, but aren't you worried about criminals who are citizens too? Those are being ignored, like Dylan Roof and the killer in Minnesota. Well, no, they're not being ignored. And I am worried about criminals of all kinds. They all should be arrested. Debbie says, Gabby, no one here believes your lies. Gabby says, it's not lies, it's the truth. Spoken like a true conspiracist. Tamara says, probably because the economy was falling under the last two presidents. Dan Cooper says, your insulin going up has zero to do with Trump. No bills passed in that regard. Gabby says, just how you people think abortion is wrong, because murder is wrong. Thou shalt not kill, it's in the Ten Commandments. Now you're going to get on abortion. Listen, look up who Margaret Sanger is. Batshit Crazy says, Gabby is a troll. Come on. I know. Gabby says, my cousin died of the sepsis because she wasn't allowed abortion. Well, there you know what causes that, right? LM says, it is the truth, Gabby, but they're talking about immigration right now. Stay on topic. It's not the truth. But, yeah, stay on topic. Debbie says Obamacare is a money laundering scheme and needs to go away. And Amanda says abortion is murder. Amy says, sounds like a bad person. It did. Sounds like a bad person. Decisions led to health issues, and now you're playing victim, Gabby. It does sound like that. Gabby, nobody is paying... Gabby says, nobody's playing victim. You are. Gabby says, I'm debating peacefully. You are. Which is why you haven't been kicked out. Witch Doctor says, so you like listening to the Grateful Dead? Not particularly. If so, what's your favorite song? I wouldn't know. I don't listen to the Grateful Dead. Christine Marshall says, insulin is down and that trend is looking to continue. So you're wrong. Dan Cooper says, no bill has been passed to affect the cost of insulin. Fake. LM says, you aren't playing victim. I'm on 1052. LM says, you aren't playing victim. Very true, Gabby. But they're worried about themselves, not you. Sorry. LM, let me handle me. Thank you. And what Gabby is saying is not very true. It is 100% Democrat talking points and 100% lies. Amanda says, nope, she's playing Democrat. Right on. Debbie says, Gabby, I will take something that never happened for 1,000. Gabby says, my sister has the Omnipod, which gives her insulin, and it's $5,000 without insurance. Well, tell her to take the shots. They're a lot cheaper. LM says, Christine Marshall, that's not true. Medication is up. Gabby says, these companies are ripping people off. Yes, that's what Big Pharma does, which is why they're trying to put a stop to it. Amanda says, well, she should have insurance. Right on. Gabby says, Trump hasn't done anything. Not true. He signed more executive orders than anybody. And he's trying to get most of those to go through Congress and get passed into law. The fact you think he's done nothing means you're not paying attention at all. And Amy says, so sue the medical companies. Dan Cooper says, what does the price of insulin have to do with Trump? Question mark. Gabby says, I do have insurance. And who wants to take it away? Trump. Your insurance is Obamacare, which is why your stuff is so expensive. Get it through your head already. Notice how everybody else seems to think it's down, it's cheaper, and you're still thinking it's up, and yet you have Obamacare, which is why they want to get rid of it. LM says it was also up under Biden, though. Just up, up, up. Tamara says, just how when Obama was president, they started a war in Sudan that a lot of people don't even know about. And Sudan was own continent. Sudan was own continent, and they split it into North and South Sudan after the war that our president started. He tried to start. He didn't get anywhere with it. Everybody collectively said, no, we're done with that, and he backed away. Gabby says, Trump wants to take away Obamacare. Yes, he does, because Obamacare is the reason your insulin is so expensive. Amy says, LOL, ha, ha, ha. And Amanda says, LOL, ha, ha, ha. And Debbie says, Gabby, Trump should take away Obamacare. He should. Dan says, how is Trump taking away your insurance? Only Congress can make cuts. Yeah. They don't understand that, though, Dan. LM says, Gabby, Trump can only take away Medicare and Medicaid. Is that your insurance? Gabby says, just how home prices are up. Well, home prices are up because land prices are up, because the economy is up, because of all the fake money that we printed in the last few years. Not while Trump was in office. Amanda says, Trump refined Obamacare once already, but he needs to get rid of it. LM says, true. And Tamara says, former presidents they sent 250 million people into the desert to die in the desert and took over. It's now American property. I don't know what you're talking about, Tamara, there. Former presidents they sent 250 million people, 250,000 people into the desert to die. Where? You talking about Desert Storm? To die in the desert and take over. It's now American property. I don't know what that's about, Tamara. Gabby says, really? Amy says, bouncy house syndrome. Retard. Gabby says, I don't think so. LM says, the right has assassins. No, they don't. Stop talking. And then my chat jumped. Hang on. It ain't going to let me get to the bottom, I don't think. What number are you at now? Turn the chat off. What number are you at now? 1054. I can't get to 1054. It stops at 1131, so I'm going to start there. Debbie says, I cannot even take Gabby seriously at this point. Gabby says, I was born and raised in California. Enough said. That makes perfect sense. LM says, he's bankrupting the nation. No, Biden did that. And yeah, I said that right. Dan Cooper says, shocking. Amanda says, that explains it all. California. LM says, opposition doesn't slow him down. He doesn't follow laws. Wrong. Opposition don't slow him down because he's the man, and opposition sucks. But he does follow the law because he's the president. He has to follow the law. Wait, what says, thank you, LM. Yes, the ones in my area were shut down by ICE 50 years ago and are still operating. Well, ICE didn't exist 50 years ago, LM, or wait, what? So you're wrong about that, but whatever. Gabby says, can't control where I was born. Sorry. No, but you can control where you're educated, and you did a piss poor job of that. Diane Tanaka says, Trump works for Israel. No, Trump works for America and is allied with Israel because Israel is our biggest ally. It's biblical. And this country is founded on biblical ideology. So, think of it what you will. Amanda says, exactly, Dan. And Amy says, California. Well, they have apps of the location of human feces. Right on. Nitrox32 says, no king, no problem. Well, this is America. We've never had a king here, buddy. And I hate to tell you that. You're protesting something that doesn't exist, quite literally. Debbie says, right, Amanda explains it all. Mr. Dixon, bass rider, says, there's a dirty fun in that name. I can just see it. No, you can't. But if you hate the USA so much, then leave. Right on. P3T3 says, is Trump winning here? Yes. Mike Farisi says, Argentina for Trump. Nice. Charlie AG says, because he said a thing like that. Okay. P3T3 Pablo says, Biden showers with his niece. I agree. LM says, but why people are protesting so people can be financially exploited? No. Gabby says, who said I hated America? I hate Trump. Who runs America? See how that works? Wait, what says, not to mention nail salons. That's just stating the obvious. I don't know what you're saying. My chat jumped. Charlie AG says Epstein 2. Epstein 2 what? P3T3 says Dem sick allowing Biden that pass LOL. I'm starting to think the chat has lost its mind because I don't know what anybody's talking about anymore. Zachary says Biden is so disgusting, literally leaned down and whispered in little girl's ears asking if he was too old for her. Well, I don't know what he said. I saw that video too. He said something. I don't know what it was, but I would caution you to not listen to the message because they're probably making that up. LM says, I feel the same thing about MAGA. They accuse us of what they're going to do. That's usually the other way around. Dan Cooper says, Gabby is from California, so bless her little pea-picking heart. Lloyd Davis says, thumbs down. Hey, however you want to do it, Lloyd. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, support, join, and super chats are available in the chat box if you want to show a little bit of love and feed Jake. If you want to hit that CashApp $ Jake Johnson Band, I do appreciate it. I could use a few bucks. Dems look for Bill Maher and Stormy interview. Dems have blinders. Right on, P3. Dems do have blinders. Bill Maher and Stormy Daniels interview will tell you a lot about what she did. Gabby says, I love California. It's obvious. Wait, what says, it is to get on the waiting list faster, but what's the harm if they are working and supporting the family? Well, there is no harm unless they're here legally, and then there's a harm in breaking the law of the country and getting deported and leaving their family behind. See how that could be a problem? LM says, no, Trump only paid $700 a year. That's not true, LM. Amanda says, you are part of the problem. Talking to Gabby. 1111 says, message retracted. I can't read it if you retract it. P3T3 says, California is a mess. Yes, it is. LM says, I paid $700 a month and I'm dirt poor. Well, yeah. Diane Tanaka says, people who praise Trump will not touch the Israel or Jew subject. So, Trumpers only when it suits them. I don't know what you're talking about, Diane. I praise Trump when he does a good job. I'll talk about Jews. You won't like my answers, though. Amy says, knowing how dirty the Democrats play the game, if Trump was on that list, it would have been released a long time ago. He kicked Epstein out when he learned who he was. Next, not only that, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but it was Trump's testimony that got Epstein arrested in the first place. Trump knew things. The FBI went to Trump, and Trump turned on him and got him arrested. That's opposite of being on the list. You understand? Mr. Dixon says, now it makes sense. Born and bred in California. I bet you identify as they, them. Aha. Wait says, not to mention more income for local businesses. That's fine with me. Diane, thank you for subscribing. Happy birthday, Donald J. Trump, says P3T3. Happy birthday. Although it's over now. LM says, you're reading the screen from like 30 minutes ago. That's because it's a long chat, and I'm working hard for the money I'm not making. Dan says, AVG cost of a house in California is $900,000. The average income, I guess that's average. The average income is $60,000. That is all you need to know about the jacked up state. And I bet Gabby voted for Newsom. P3 says, ask Stormy about Bill Maher interview. Right on. Amanda says, Donald Trump paid about $38 million on about $150 million in income. That's more like the reality. Gabby says, how can I control where I was born? No, you can't control where you were born. You can control what you do with your life after you're born. Zach says, Amy, there's a ton of each of them in there. Nasty MFs. Amy says, Democrats have issues with the difference between civil and criminal courts. Right on. P3 says, California's a mess. LM says, it was dropped because he became president. He's a sadist. He's a sadist. I don't know what that means. A sadist? A sexual assaultist? Is that what you're trying to say? No, he's not. It was dropped because it was bullshit. The thing that was dropped because he became president was the form in New York that he signed, that his accountant signed. The 34 felonies, which was the same thing 34 times, which was a clerical error, which was only made illegal for 1 year so that they could prosecute Trump on it. It's not illegal, and that every business owner in America does that same thing. I mean, every builder in America does that same thing. And Amanda says, you can't control where you were born, but you can control where you decide to live. Amy says, straight men dream about doing it with beautiful women. True. What are we talking about? P3 says 11. That's sus. I don't know what we're talking about, but it sounds legitimate. I dream about doing it with beautiful women. Who doesn't? No Name Bingo says, you've never had a real job. Blah. True. I've had many jobs. None of them were real. I've had a couple real jobs, but not very many. Never may be strong. A long time ago, I had a real job. Most of my jobs have been of my own accord, using my talents to make a living. Like this one, which is a job. And I'm not making very much at it. So if you want a super chat, I'd appreciate it. But hit that Cash App. I'd appreciate that more because I actually get all of it then. And the Cash App is $ Jake Johnson Band if you want to. P3 says, Gabby, make California great again. That would be MAGA. Suitable for some reason. Amanda says, California had an app to find all the bum shit on the streets. That's sickening. All right. I'm not going to get to the bottom of this chat anytime soon, so I'm just going to start skipping bullshit. Christine says, if I had my way, I would cut Medicare and Medicaid and get federal government out of health care. Smart. Amy says, billionaires work every single day. Amanda says, I wouldn't brag about that. About what? Oh, I probably should skip bullshit and then skip people that are responding to bullshit that I skipped. Sorry. P3 says Trump worked more hours the first week than Biden did in 4 years. True. Yeah. Maragrow 617 says, if Trump is for the billionaires, how come most of the billionaires are for the left? Right. Smart observation there, Mara. Lloyd Davis says, he is a convicted felon. No, he's not. Stop it with your bullshit. P3 says, Gabby, the gift of dim gab. Yep. All right, from this point forward, if I miss your chat, I apologize. I'm trying to get to the bottom, and nobody's super chatting, so I need to get to the bottom. It's midnight, and I've been here since 8:30. And I really have to pee, so I apologize if I miss what you wrote. Come back tomorrow, and I'll do better. Amy says, and you, LOL, at baby murder, you're a sick individual. And Amanda says he was never convicted of any felonies. Bullshit, Gabby. And that would be considered a DNC, not an abortion. Right. And abortion's murder. And Whipmaster Hart renewed his membership. Thank you for being here, Whipmaster. Or you joined, one or the other. I thought you were already a member, but maybe I was mistaken about that. But thank you. You haven't been doing any commenting. Are you just listening in, Whipmaster? Oh, here you go. Whipmaster says, long overdue, boss. How is everyone? Nice to see you, Whipmaster. I'm glad you're here. I'm exhausted and my voice is going, so I'm starting to skip chats. So if I missed your chat, I apologize. It's not because I wanted to. It's because I'm tired. Amy says, rare instance, the other 99% are because women did not have body autonomy when they laid down and had sex. And Amanda says, we're hot in conversation, Whip. Join us, man. Right on. Whipmaster says, oh, joy, politics. Only one night a week. Amy says, like I said, certain instances such as incest, health of the mother, or rape, the other 99% is because of bad decisions. Right on. And most of those other cases rarely ever happen. I mean, they're talked about a whole lot more than they actually occur. Amy says, so you punish the child for the illegal actions of the father, Gabby? That's like sending a 2-year-old to prison because his dad did or sells drugs. And Mr. Dixon says, we're not silent, we just can't properly communicate with a cabbage. Are you calling me a cabbage? Or Gabby a cabbage? I guess I probably shouldn't skip chats, but I ain't never getting to the bottom if I don't. Wait, what says, what was wrong with my last comment and why did it get removed? Ha ha ha. Probably because it was disrespectful or something. Amy says, LOL. Don't you have a test or a study? Don't you have a test to study for your associate degree? Go study. Right on. Whipmaster says, thoughts on Israel-Iran mess. My thoughts are I hope we don't get involved in that. It was inevitable. It's going to happen. Those people have been at each other's throat for a long time over there. And it's bad. But I hope we don't get involved. We're probably going to get involved. But I hope we don't. Amy says, I'll show you the meaning of bounce if you keep it up. Ooh. Shots fired. Whipmaster says, government and health care is two very conflicting businesses. True. True that. Amy says, you're just very ill in the mind. Poisoned by the woke mind virus, Gabby. Amanda says, he didn't say fake. Right on. Whipmaster says, I love the ladies in the chat. They're swiftly handling these godless Jezebels, making excuses for baby deleting. Right on. The Rick says evolution is false. Why you would have to be a mental midget to believe that nonsense. I agree. Amy says, I only put him in timeout for 10 minutes. And Amanda says, you're nicer than I am. Amy says, you have a bigger hammer. Amy says, happy Father's Day, Jake, and all the fathers in the chat. Yes, thank you very much, and happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. May your children show you love and abundance, and may you enjoy their presence at some point today. Happy Father's Day. God bless you all. And thank you, Amy, for being the first to wish me a happy Father's Day. I think. I've been skipping chat, so if I missed it, I'm sorry. Whipmaster says, happy Pappy's Day, fellas. Happy Pappy's Day back at you, Whipmaster. And Amanda says, good night, everybody. See you tomorrow night for Bible study. Delphine Fingerstony. Firing Stony. Happy Father's Day. And God bless to all you men. Thank you, Delphine. Christine says, happy Father's Day. Thank you, Christine. Happy Father's Day to you, too. Swish and Salami say something of value. Amy says, Bible study tomorrow night. See y'all there. We do not tolerate the same nonsense there that we do tonight. Trolls, if you show up tomorrow night, you will get booted immediately. You have to be there to listen. Amanda says, happy Father's Day to all dads. Thank you, Amanda. Christine says, good night. Mr. Dixon says, good night and God bless you all. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm sorry I had to skip over the last quarter of the chat there. It got ridiculous, and I'm just tired. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow night for Bible study right here on Untethered Live. Come see me, Whipmaster Hart, and thank you for coming and joining the channel or renewing whatever it was you did. I appreciate you very much. God bless and have a good night. Thanks for watching.